What's up, everybody? I'm Justin Allen. This is Walter Allen. We got our good buddies here, Chris Monroe and Josh Lamp. This is episode 4 of the Shakedown. We're going to talk a little bit about tracking deer for our buddies here, the longest track that Walter's ever done. Chris is kind of just getting back into bow hunting, so he's going to tell us a little bit about that. And with that, I'll let you go, Walter.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Sean Butler for having us last week. That was really interesting. Good, a lot of good information, a lot of good tricks and techniques and trade secrets, and a lot of good stories.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty good to sit down with somebody else that's tracked a whole lot of deer with dogs and kind of compare notes and see the similarities in it. You know,
we was pretty similar on a lot of things.
On a lot of things, yeah. It was fun listening to him talk about the broadheads.
Yeah, I liked his
take on that.
Yeah, the first thing he said was
that was little small diameter broadheads. Yep. So, Chris, you killed a nice buck this year.
It was a good buck for me, for sure.
Yeah.
And it was the first bow kill I've made in 18 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you shoot it with a crossbow?
No, I shot it with a
compound
bow.
What kind of bow you shoot?
A bear.
A bear.
Yeah.
You just bought that?
Just bought it, eh?
I just bought it. Yep.
You like it?
Yeah. It's not a top-notch bow. It's a top-notch bear.
Right.
But there's some things I really like about it, and some things that I certainly could improve upon. But like I said, it was the first time I'd gotten a bow in a long time.
Yep.
Up until then, I had a 20-year-old. I don't even
Bowtech.
Bowtech.
Yeah. So
it's in their garage now.
Yeah. So it was an upgrade from what I had for sure, but the let off is a little odd to me by comparison because it's a higher let off, and I don't like it. I like a little more force against it, but overall it's good. And
what is your draw length?
Like 85 inches.
That's what I was thinking.
No, it's 32.
You're what?
32.
32.
Wow.
6'5", 6'6"?
Well, depends on what gas station I'm going into.
Yeah.
6'4" probably.
Yeah.
That bow's smoking then.
Oh, it's smoking. Yeah. It was fast. And relative to the Bowtech, I mean it's blowing some serious smoke. But
so I bought a new bow this year, and I'd shot bear for quite a few years and elite back and forth, and then this year I went and shot all of them, and I ended up with a Hoyt again.
That's a nice bow.
Yeah. I like it, but
what kind of broadheads are you shooting?
Rage. There you go.
There you go.
Rage. Yeah.
First bow kill in 18 years, and he's trying to remember.
First pack of Rage.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it was like throwing a hatchet at it. I mean, it opened it up good. So that's the first time ever using mechanicals. These guys have been using them for years, and recommended those, and I don't think there's another way to do it.
Yeah.
The days of the Wasp are over.
Yeah, the small broadheads, small fixed blades, it's over.
So, Walter, you took your dog out to track that deer, even though you probably didn't need to, but...
Nah, he didn't need me, but
you took your dachshund out?
Yeah, the little dachshund.
The first track for that dog, or...?
Well, he'd been on 2 or 3, but it was the first one where he really shined.
Yeah. How far did that deer go?
It probably only made it 100 yards, didn't it?
I would say somewhere in that ballpark. It was
not very far.
Not very far.
Yeah. Where'd you hit that deer at?
It was kind of quartered away from me, and it went in right behind the shoulder, but it came out behind the last rib, so it got one lung and the liver. And, for the first, 10, 15 yards, there was no blood whatsoever, but
then it started.
It was pretty good after that. But
yeah, you hit them there with a Rage, and they're not going to survive that.
Oh, it was a good... It was a good quality shot, and I knew it. But Walt and I had talked, and he was just excited as me about the first time getting back in the woods with the bow. And
I wanted to be there.
He said, "Don't even look for it. You call me, and we'll get the tracking dogs going." And so,
what day did you shoot that deer? You remember the date?
It was in November in the rut.
It was in November in the rut.
Around the 10th or something, wasn't it?
It was right at the pinnacle of the rut, really. And I had hunted on one side of the property for a while and wasn't seeing a lot of activity. So there's a road that divides the two. So I went to the other side and did a little bit of scouting, and I found what I thought would be the best place to place my blind, and I hit it the best I could, and I put myself on a pretty hot trail with a bunch of scrapes, and sure enough, it paid off.
So you shoot that deer from the ground?
From the ground, yeah.
In a blind.
I'm so congested I can't hardly talk.
Yeah.
So it was the first one from a blind with a bow?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd never hunted with a bow from a blind. I had hunted with a rifle many times from a blind, but
So what kind of blind did you have? Because I'm sure it had to be like 9 feet tall.
I shot the doe sitting in my chair,
Sitting down.
sitting down through a crack about 2 inches tall.
Did you find it at the Big and Tall store?
No, it's just a standard one. I got it at Dunham's, I believe. So I think it was like 45 or 48 inches tall is all it was. So when I'm sitting down, that's about all I can do.
That's it.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. And it was a rifle, more of a turkey blind than anything. So the little windows only opened up so much.
Right.
So I was, had to gauge where my arrow versus my sight. I'm sure everybody shot off the hood of a car, and that scope ain't where your barrel.
Yeah, that's right.
Same thing with a bow.
For sure. Yep.
Was he chasing a doe or anything?
No, he was. He come up and he was just eating. The place I chose was a place with some pretty heavy acorns. So, there's bedding areas and then there's just what I'll call walking through areas out there. And I kind of tried to put myself between where they bed and where they eat.
Kind of a transition.
Try to have a transition area, and it paid off.
Take it off. Is that the first year that you've seen that deer before?
I had it on camera that year.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I'd seen it in person. Yeah.
Did you have pictures of it like years prior?
No. Most of my hunting equipment, like my cameras and stuff, was on the other side of the road. But, I talked to Walter. It was hot, and then it was not. It was just nothing. So
Time to move.
I moved, and I kind of went in blind, other than the fact that I just kind of knew the area, knew where the bedding area and the feeding area was. So I tried to position myself in the best place. And I'm not opposed to it, but I don't put corn piles out or anything like that. I just, whatever's there, I try to hunt within that scope.
Well, that was my next question. I assume you shot that deer on your own property.
Yes.
So now that you're getting back into it, are you going to do any like food plots or protein and minerals on in the off season, or?
If I do, it's just going to be just like a natural thing, like disc up a spot and put some natural feeds in. I think I'm still going to avoid like an actual corn pile.
Right.
Like I say, everybody teach their own. I'm not condemning that, but it's just I don't want to do it.
Sure.
I wanted a more natural, more organic thing. That's all.
Now, is that where you killed your buck at last year?
I killed the big buck with the rifle on the other side of the road.
But same
Same farm, yeah.
And Josh was with you last year.
Yeah, and I ruined his hunt as soon as I shot it.
I know. I got the phone call real early.
Yeah, it was just a few minutes later. He said, shot the big one.
And it was extremely cold.
It was cold.
It was very cold.
And you knew that deer was there also.
I knew that one was there.
Yeah.
I had him on camera, and that was the first year of owning the property, so I didn't have any prior experience with that other than what we had that year.
Right.
And I set up cameras and kind of put myself in the best position, and then
Cutting Josh off.
kind of last minute, Josh says, "Hey, can I go with you?" And I'm like, "Well, sure. We'll figure out a spot for you, no problem." So
Put him where he'll run the buck out at daylight.
ultimately, I short staffed it.
Yeah, we wasn't far apart, but
You called right after daylight.
Yeah.
I saw him.
He said, Chris done shot. It's over.
The worst part was that thing come up out of the woods, and there was a big autumn olive bush, and I just seen head and horns come out, and I couldn't see any body. So I had to just look away for like 20 minutes until it
Wait till it walked out.
I couldn't look at it the whole time.
Yeah.
It was wearing me out.
Now, you killed one this year, Josh?
No, I haven't killed nothing this year yet.
Oh, I thought you did.
No.
You killed a pretty nice one early last year.
I killed a nice one last year.
And then the year before that, you shot one in gun season, and I was in Lowell that day, and I come and helped.
Yeah, you helped me take some nice pictures of it.
Yeah.
I think you guys saw a big buck riding up on the hill on a four-wheeler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had your gun, and you guys couldn't get it together to get a shot at your deer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that was, because then you shot one, too, that same year, and then we jumped one walking in.
Yeah.
You were like, they always come from that direction. I walked over there, that one jumped up and took off.
Yeah. And that same day, There was 12,
Yeah,
11 or 12 bucks came.
I shot the 10th buck walk by me that day, chasing does.
Yeah.
First day of gun season. But
They was all chasing one doe.
one little doe come through.
And how long after the doe came through did the bucks start showing?
I mean, for the first 15 minutes to 4 hours later before I shot it.
So from when you saw the doe, the deer you shot came through 4 hours later trailing that doe.
That's a lot of bucks to see on the first day.
Oh, it was unreal. And I hadn't had a picture of that deer since 1st of October, so.
Right. Now, you're real big into archery.
Yeah.
So you've killed a lot of your bucks with archery equipment.
And he has 17 bows.
Hey, yeah, that's what I was getting ready to get into.
400 arrows.
I got,
So how many bows do you have, you think?
there's 10 or 12 hanging,
Yeah.
That's no joke.
Yeah. The you and your daughter shoot competition, right?
Yeah, we've been shooting competition the last 2 years or 3 years. She's been doing it a little bit longer.
Yeah. So you guys won any competitions?
Yeah,
or-
she's won at the Worlds.
He has too.
We both won just under the hunting class. So,
Oh, nice.
The same day, wasn't it?
yeah, the same day, first year together shooting it. So,
You got your pictures taken together.
shot at the IBO Worlds. So,
It's pretty good.
it was pretty neat to do it together.
Yeah.
How old is Riley?
She was 16 now. She did it at 14. So,
Does she like to hunt as well?
not really.
Not really. She likes to shoot the bows.
Yeah, she likes shooting the bows, but I can't get her to hunt. So,
Huh. Yeah. The so you still got what 2 weeks left at Ohio that you could
got
get
2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Got some nice deer coming.
got nice deer on camera, but just hadn't made it happen.
Yeah. Well, so a little bit of time. Like I said, Walter killed one next
Yeah.
last day there a few years ago. So the back, was it the first year that you started tracking, or it would probably been the second year when you tracked his deer?
It would have been the third year.
Third year,
2008.
and that was when we were pretty new to it. That was
Probably the
sunny.
first 25 tracks
Yeah, that was sunny, right?
behind a
Yep.
dog. It was with Sonny.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about that track.
Well, it was the longest track we've definitely got to walk on. And
It was probably 6 hours.
6 hours.
One of his good friends was a local,
yeah,
and he knew everyone.
Uh-huh.
So every time we'd come to a property line, he'd get permission,
Right.
and then we'd continue.
yeah,
But he had permission slip in his pocket,
yeah. I just
15 minutes?
15, 20 minutes, right after got the permission slip and got set up in the tree stand. And
Went straight hunting from getting a permission slip
Really?
at like 8 o'clock in the morning. He was in the tree by what, 8:30?
yeah, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and shot that deer in the first 15 minutes. The other buddy never even made it to his tree stand yet. And he's like, man, I just dropped you off. You're just lying.
Never
Yeah,
scouted, never been in there.
Just walked it.
Some guy.
Just take a climber in.
Yeah,
Walked
took
in with a
climber in.
primer.
Some guy had just come driving out there with his truck, and I thought, man, I've already took the day off from work, so I'm just gonna pick a tree and climb right up it.
And you said you thought it was Veterans Day?
Yeah, I think it was November 11th, 2008.
November 11th, 2008. Huh.
So he called me and he said, I made a perfect shot. He's smoked. But
Yeah.
bring the dog anyway. It'd be great practice.
Yeah.
Because the main goal was to make Sonny a tracking dog.
Right.
So we was going to put him on every track we could. So when I got there, he showed me where the deer was standing. And for some reason, it stands out in my mind that you had your bow, your pin set on 20 yards.
Yeah, I shoot 20 yards,
38
38 yards.
shot. And I was thinking, did you adjust your pin? And you said, no, I just put it on him, squeezed the trigger, and center punched him.
Yeah, that
And-
deer ducked that much at 38 yards. It still
Still got it.
It looked
Still
like a perfect shot. It's right behind the shoulders, in and out, clean pass through. What kind of broadhead was it?
That was a Muzzy 90 grain.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Muzzy. There we go.
Four blades.
Holds the record.
It
Four
was.
bladed Muzzy. So
Where'd you hit that deer? In
I-
front of the
I-
diaphragm?
perfectly right through the. I mean, you would think it was through the lungs.
I think
It
it
was
was
a
still a
good shot.
double lung shot. The blood and everything.
It
showed-
left
showed
good
lung
blood. Just a strong deer.
Yeah.
And he just
Small broadhead.
yeah.
So
Rutted deer.
we started tracking. We went right up over the top of the hill and down the other side, and there was just steady blood trails, foamy clusters of lung blood. It was pink lung blood. and it was on everything. There was tons and tons of blood. It was just clusters. I'm talking chunks of soap sud-like clusters.
Right.
It was obvious lung blood. And we probably tracked it the first 450, 500 yards, and it went up on top of that big hill, didn't it?
I think it went up the hill. Then
It's been a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
So it went up on top of that hill, and that's where we jumped.
Yeah, out of the cedars.
Out of the cedar thicket. And there was a bed clear full of foamy lung blood clusters. And as it come off that hill, I can't on it, isn't he?
It's trying to be the star of the show.
Yeah.
As it come off the hill, I can remember the blood on the trees and going down through there. It wasn't extremely high. It was probably blood about that high, but there was blood, just a steady. The amount of blood was amazing.
You just never thought it went that far. I mean,
Right.
And that's when it went down across Duck Creek.
Across the Duck Creek.
And as soon as we got to the bottom, I believe we seen it going across that field.
Yeah, it did run across the field.
It's probably 400 yards away or something.
Did it bed down before it crossed that?
No, it just jumped it.
It just jumped it. So when it made it clear across the field and across the creek, over into some houses.
So how far do you think it went before it bedded?
Probably 450, 500 yards the first time.
Yeah. So you think if you would have just left it, it would have died there?
I don't
I
think
don't
it
Don't
would have
think
died
it
at all.
died, yeah.
I think it was a high lung shot.
It was just
I think your only chance of getting a high lung shot is to push them.
Right. So you guys just continued to
ask.
kept getting permission.
Bison went and got
Yep.
permission. We sat there and waited. Then we continued.
Go to the next farm, and
It was farm after farm. At one point, we're walking right beside a house, and there's a good blood trail, and there's still foamy clusters of lung blood. And we're walking right by the house. And we even walked right by a wood burner, an outside wood burner. There's
Oh, yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. So then it came to a little a roadway, and you look up and there's a tree stand about 50 yards, and the deer would turn. And then we'd follow it for a ways, and you look up and there's another tree stand, and it's like the deer would turn just out of range.
Just out of range. Yeah.
Like he knew where the range was.
Yep.
He never would go in underneath those tree stands.
Huh.
And this track went on for hours and hours. Of course, we would sit and wait, and we would stop. Back then, we didn't know to continue. We thought you stop and let it die.
Right.
You just wait and give it time, and it'll die. But we tracked, and we got permission over and over.
Yeah.
So it went on for, I'd say, close to 6 miles
6 months.
and close to 6 hours.
That's a lot.
So
there was a lot of up and downhill.
in the beginning, as long as you're getting blood, you keep going. I got the dog. The dog wants to go. I don't know that the deer is going to live. I don't know. We're learning as we go.
Yeah.
There was no book. There was no social media to look at back then. It was all.
This was like the first 20 tracks or so.
that we'd ever followed a dog.
If you had that to do today, would that just be a survivor?
That would be a survivor.
Yeah.
You'd call that off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time we saw the deer, it would look a little weaker. And, we knew it was getting weaker because we had pushed it a long, long ways. And the amount of blood it lost, it looked like you'd had to take a 5-gallon bucket to mimic that track, to make that blood trail again.
So how often did it bed?
It was about every 450, 500 yards.
It was getting closer, and we get closer to it, and you jump back up.
And then it a little bit shorter, bed back down.
Yeah.
Jump back up, a little bit shorter, bed back down. And eventually you just got back up to it.
We crossed the creek 4 times that day. So
Just back and forth.
yeah,
Obviously, the deer didn't go 6 miles in a straight line.
No,
It was a big circle.
Big circle.
Big circle. And some of it was almost over top itself. It'd go to the top of a big giant hill, and we'd jump on top of that hill, and it'd run right straight back down. So a lot of it was almost over top its own track.
Right.
So I can remember being at one point, we was down in that creek, and we was coming up through that creek with Sonny, and Sonny was real bucky, he was real birdie. He was looking around like I knew we was close, and I heard something, and as I look up, the deer comes off the creek bank. It's almost jumping over top of us, and it lands in the middle of the creek. And when it landed, it was going up through there, and you could tell it was just weak.
Getting weak.
And it crossed the creek and went out of sight. So we all got together and crossed the creek, and I don't know, there's probably 3 or 4 of us by then.
yeah, that was.
I know it was me, you, and Tyson, but it seemed like there was a couple. Was Jared there? Maybe
I don't remember if we made it there yet or.
a couple other people. I'm thinking with us, but I remember you guys started up the creek, and Sonny wanted to go up the hill. And everybody was convinced it went down or up that creek because it couldn't have went up the hill.
Right.
It's too weak. But we done tracked it for hours, and I knew Sonny was going the right way. We got to follow Sonny. Because it bled real good up till the end, and that last time it crossed the creek, we hadn't found blood to see which way to go. So I followed Sonny up to the top of the hill, and it was a big, steep hill. It was probably 150 yards up that hill.
Yep.
And just as I get to the top, me and Sonny is now all alone. I look to my left, and I could see his buck standing down there about 150 yards. And me and Sonny just took off running hard as we could.
Towards it.
And when we got down there, instantly it spun around on Sonny, and Sonny's barking. Well, it didn't want to run. It was just standing there fighting.
Yeah.
And I can remember hiding behind this big tree, watching the deer fight that dog. And the dog was barking and barking, and the deer's taking his horns, trying to get the dog. And I was taking pictures with my camera, sneaking out. Every time I'd peek out around the tree, that deer'd look at me, and boy, it was scary, that deer staring me down.
Yeah.
And I knew it was just going to be a minute, but Sonny was barking.
Yeah, you could just hear him barking, going crazy. I had 200 yards to go.
Yeah. To try to catch it to him.
I'm trying to run through there.
It was really dry, really crunchy. And I knew any second when he heard Sonny, he was going to know what it was.
Yeah,
he was going to come running. And I can remember hearing him come, but I turned around and looked. It looked like his feet. I'm telling you, it looked like he was turning circles. He was coming that grid, perma grid. He knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And he come in there, and I stayed back. He went running in there, and him and Sonny was just over this little crest.
It wasn't.
And you shot the deer 2 more times, didn't you?
2 more shots. It wasn't chasing her no more. So, I mean, luckily the first shot, kind of spined it. Gave it another shot and pitted it out.
And that was...
it was a long day, but it was well rewarding. And
still your biggest buck today, didn't it?
Yeah, it was one of the biggest bucks today.
Well, did you look at Walter and say, told you?
Perfect shot.
Yeah, perfect shot.
Easy track.
It was a perfect shot.
Well, he was right. It was good practice.
So when we got done, we was probably within 150, 200 yards
where it started.
From where it started.
Yeah.
It was a big circle.
Big circle.
And it was probably within 100 yards of where the blood trail come over the hill the first time.
It wasn't far at all.
I mean,
in your experience, like when you see blood like that, is it like motor oil a little bit, looks like a lot, or is it a good indicator when you see that?
So the amount of blood means nothing.
Nothing.
Unless you find your deer.
Right.
The amount of blood what means everything is what's in the blood.
Right.
So when you find them bubbles, of clusters of soap suds looking bubbles, a pink soap suds looking out
foam.
You know where you've hit it.
That's a lung's blood, yeah.
So if you see the dark red blood,
well, if you see dark red blood, it could be artery or just this heavy blood, but liver blood is usually not pretty. It's usually dirty looking, almost like it has coffee grains in it or specks, or it just isn't pretty. Sometimes look like muddy water.
That like bright, pretty red blood is usually like a muscle blood.
Even if it's thick and heavy, it still can be muscle blood. What means everything is what is in the blood. What's the blood look like? So when you get on that blood trail and there's just tons and tons of lung blood, pink soap suds, pink clusters, and you make it 300-400 yards, and you're not finding the deer, he's not laying there dead, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just too far to be fatal for the lungs. So the lungs are kind of like a boat. If you get a hole in your boat, a small hole in your boat, and the water comes in, and you're able to bail the water out faster than it comes in, the boat stays afloat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get a big hole in your boat and the water rushes in faster than you can bail it out, you sink. And that's how the lungs work. Everybody pictures them as a balloon, and when you get a hole in it, the balloon now has a hole in it, it can't hold air. Well, the lungs are more like millions of little tiny balloons clustered together. So when you shoot through there, you pop a bunch of balloons, but they still continue to work. The lungs don't fail, they drown. So arteries, if you get a fatal artery hit, they fail. They quit pumping blood to the proper places, and they die. Oxygen stops and they die. And same way with the heart. But the lungs don't fail. They must drown. So when you're looking at that blood, you really want to look at what's in the blood. And if it's that clean, red, pretty blood, it's not always good.
No.
Yeah, so when people call and they say, I've shot it, I've tracked it 300 or 400 yards, and there's just no way it can live. There's just so much blood. That's usually like a terrible sign. Like if it's bleeding so much that it's gonna die, like you're gonna find
You'll
it.
find it.
Yeah. If it goes hundreds of yards and it's still bleeding a lot, it's not good.
Several times I've been on a track and it looks like a massacre. It'll just be just tons and tons of blood, and it just comes to nothing.
So,
and over, those deer just show back up on camera 2 weeks later.
Well, go ahead.
So, like when we tracked mine this year, like the first 15 yards, there wasn't anything. But then once it started, it was spraying trees, and
that was a sign of organs and lungs and coming out his nose. There's little spray,
little specks, yeah.
Yeah, it signs it might be coming out of his nose when he exhales.
Gotcha. So that would be more what you're looking for like a guaranteed kill, like
stuff in the blood, dirty blood.
No,
you don't want to see pretty. If it reminds you of your blood, most likely there's no organs involved. Now, sometimes the blood you're seeing is the exterior wound, especially with a big broadhead.
Right.
It's the skin blood, that first blood you see, especially for the first couple hundred yards. A lot of it is the exterior wound blood. It hasn't clotted yet. So, you might not see that good organ blood for 50 yards or 60 yards.
So when you see the big chunks of coagulated blood, that's probably not just a skin wound. That's something more
Could
fake.
be artery.
Yeah. Okay.
So you want to look at your era. One of the first things I tell everybody is, first thing you want to do is wait. You want to sit there and wait. You don't want to get out too early. Worst thing you can do is go too soon and jump the deer. That ruins it. I mean, that takes your chances away. But after you get down, give it plenty of time. You want to look for your era. That era tells you a lot. If you can find that era, that helps 100%. See what's on that era. If it's clean looking, to back out and leave. If there's guts on it, to back out and leave. If there's lung blood there, I'd say wait a couple hours and go look. If you make it 300 yards and you don't find your deer, you want to back out and wait.
Call a professional.
Call a dog.
Yeah. Call a dog.
So when I shot this deer right here, I shot it, and I didn't even see where the arrow hit it. And I got down and I found blood. So I called Walter, and we tracked that deer like 600 yards. And
there was blood the whole way, wasn't there?
Great blood the whole way. Like I thought for sure we were going to find it.
It was like 2 a.m. when we quit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought for sure we were going to find it like any minute. And it come to a bed, and in that bed there was like a quarter size drop of blood. And then out of that bed there was nothing. Dog didn't track, nothing. 2 days later, the deer was back on camera in the same spot I shot it.
And then you killed the deer.
I killed the deer
across the farm.
I moved like
10 days later,
1,000 yards or so, and 2 weeks later I killed it. Yep.
It was real random. You never knew where it was going to be.
Yeah, he was all over the place. I had pictures of that deer for 3 years, and I had only ever seen him twice in daylight. I wounded him once, and I killed him the second time. Yeah.
And where did you hit him when you wounded him?
So he was kind of down below me. I was up above, so it's pretty high. He was kind of quartered away, and I'm assuming I caught a limb, and I actually hit the deer right behind the ear. And
that's what happens when you're looking at the horns.
Yeah. So whenever we found it, when I shot it, he's like, holy cow, look at that. And on its left side of his face, there's a scar. And that arrow broke off at the back of his ear. And there was 6 inches of arrow with the broadhead.
Tip of the broadhead
was peeking out of the skin on the opposite side. And I actually think, as weird as it sounds, it played a part into me being able to kill a deer, because he never really daylighted. And all of a sudden, he started to hit this other spot on the other side of the farm with this corn pile that I put out. And I went in, and it was November night, I think. And there was a buck come up, and he was eating out of corn. This doe come out, running out past me, and he was chasing her. And I'll never forget it. When he was grunting, he sounded like a squeaky toy.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I think his jaw was like lockjaw, so he couldn't really eat anything, and he started coming to that corn pile like every single day, and that buck was up there eating out of the corn, and that deer went and chased that doe, but thankfully this buck heard that buck coming through, and walked over to the edge, and started making a scrape, and that deer turned around and come back to see what this deer was doing, and I shot him.
And when you shot him, he made it probably 300 yards.
Yeah, whenever I got down and called you, I looked just right there where I shot, found my arrow.
Wasn't much blood.
There wasn't hardly any blood at all to the deer, and I shot it with a fixed blade, the ram cat.
Ram cat.
Yep,
That's what I was called.
shot it with a ram cat. Hit it back like through the guts.
Yep.
And
It didn't make it that far. It was all downhill.
Yeah,
straight towards
probably
the creek.
300 yards. Yeah,
But I remember looking down at that big rack
uh-huh.
and looked really cool. You could see it laying down there.
Oh, I could imagine.
Well, it was kind of nerve wracking though, because I was hunting in this park, right? I had permission to hunt in there. A bunch of people hunted there.
Walking trails.
There's walking trails everywhere, and then they like weave through the property, so there's nowhere that you can really get that's far enough off of a trail that you can't see the trail. So like I'd be hunting there, there'd be people walking by me, walking their dogs, and I'm just sitting up in a tree in my tree stand, like they're walking right by me. They got no idea, and I was scared to death that once we found it, that we would get back to it before somebody would walk through and steal it. But
So that was where you.
so we drug it back to the creek and hid it, and
And I remember we went up there and got it.
then we went and got the foiler, went in and got it from the.
So that was the same property where you wrestled the deer.
Yeah. So the deer, it's over there in my kitchen. I just posted a video of it the other day. Some of the people probably seen it, but that was 2015. I shot a deer, hit it back. I knew I did, and I don't know. We waited quite a while, probably 4 or 5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And me, you, Unc, and my buddy Lee went in, and we started tracking that deer.
Had
And-
bear.
Yeah,
and radar.
and radar. And we come down over a hill, and he was laying there. And when we first seen him, he looked dead. He was just laying there on his side, head down.
We didn't take no bow. We didn't take no gun.
No, didn't have nothing. So
We didn't know. You know, it's still early in our tracking career.
this is like, were you weren't on crutches, but
No.
but it was pretty close after the next year. Okay. So Walter's up on the hill. Unc goes down with radar, walks up to the deer. The deer picks his head up. So Unc grabs a hold of its right side of
We wasn't ready for Unc to grab.
No, we weren't ready for it to grab it. So now Unc's got his dog and his leash in this hand. This deer starts thrashing him. So then I run over, grab a hold of the rack,
You Unc.
and the deer stands up. So I got this sweet picture of me and Unc holding this deer's head and its body standing up like that. And my buddy Lee come over and we shoved it down, and Unc got on top of it, and I holding it down and stabbed it.
This is the year after I was on.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm not doing nothing.
Get him, guys.
You guys get him.
Help him. Get in there.
But I mean, that deer was definitely going to die probably within the next hour or so.
Yeah, that's not what we wanted to happen.
No, we saw.
Sometimes it's kind of fun.
Well, yeah,
It's interesting.
It's scary.
It gets, yeah.
Was it fun, Walter?
It was fun for me. You got to get in there, guys. Go get him. There he is, you know.
It was funny because he's like, "You guys go get it." I already been through that. Broke my ankle, got stabbed.
But it's not the way we like it to happen. If it was our choice, we would finish him off immediately with a gun, but we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing that people don't understand is everybody's like, "Well, why did you shoot it again?" Well, I don't have my bow with me.
Things happened. We didn't plan.
Right.
And when it's spur of the moment, you're not really thinking exactly right. You know,
Yeah.
hindsight's 20/20. But
I mean,
when you're there, you're afraid the deer's going to leave. There's people around. You don't want the people to see the deer wounded.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going through our head. I didn't want the dog around, and
in a perfect scenario, we would have just backed out, waited another hour or so, and walked
Found
back
him
in,
dead.
found him dead. But
hindsight's 20/20
But-
every time.
Unc walked up on it and grabbed a hold of it. And the same scenario, it's in that park. Yeah. I'm like, man, the last thing I want to do
Run through the park.
is see this deer get up and running through the park and running past people or whatever. But yeah, no, we got that one. I think that's the only one of my deer that we've tracked that we had to grab a hold of. Well, except when I was like 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Josh and I tracked one for some friends of yours, Edie and Greg, from
That's last year.
several years ago, we tracked the doe.
Yeah.
Remember, we had Buffy and Sonny and Bear. I think I took all 3 dogs. And
It was interesting how
that deer made it clear to the neighbors.
laid down pretty much on his porch.
It actually, the blood trail there was a circle driveway out front of his log cabin, and there was a big flower planter in the middle of that It actually went up over the planter, down the other side behind the garage.
Holy cow.
And we found it there behind the garage. Well, when we got there, it was still alive. And
that was in the beginning too.
That was in the beginning. And we tackled it.
You just knock on the door and
Yeah, we went and got permission.
Excuse me, my deer is in your flower bed.
And they wanted to see the blood, and we showed them the blood trail, and it was right through their front yard. It was like it was hiding in their garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about those people that do like the urban hunts where they have you go in and do those select. I just couldn't imagine just walking into somebody's backyard,
No, so we got it legal a few years ago to hunt in this housing development in Parkersburg, and one of the gentlemen that helped us do it lived in that housing development, and legitimately this housing development basically surrounded this little field like that figured off in a couple ways, so like everybody was hunting the same spot basically, and a buddy of mine shot a doe, and it literally run right up that creek right into somebody's backyard, just died in their backyard.
There are just too many deer in there.
Yeah, I mean they're everywhere. And,
I live here in Parkersburg too, right beside the city park.
yeah, you see big bucks walking through the cemetery all the time.
I get great big ones walking through there.
Yep.
It's amazing.
About 3 years ago in February, you called me. You live on a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
He called me and he says, I'm standing on my front porch and I can count 28 deer.
Yeah.
My.
Yeah, it literally me and the daughters can shake a bucket and here comes a deer. I mean,
Yeah.
it don't matter.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I don't know how many years they've been doing that, but I know several people that do it. There's been some big bucks killed in the city of Parkersburg over the last few years from it.
I stick my trail camera up in the yard and
Yeah, just to get pictures of them.
that big one they just killed in Parkersburg 2 years ago, or so it was in my yard.
So what surprises me about that is I had a buddy of mine that had pictures of that deer in his backyard,
Yeah.
and it's it was a few miles apart through town.
Yeah.
So how many yards and roads and everything was that deer traveling through to get to there? So from your house, and he lived basically in the traffic circle, Parkersburg, just right up from that.
Yeah, it's probably a mile and a half, two.
Straight line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one ridge that runs through the graveyard. It comes right to the back of my house. So
Yeah.
it seems like they're always walking at.
Right.
Is that the one that was in your yard? Is that the one that the city cop ultimately shot?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I got videos of it the year before, all over the graveyard there. So
That was a big one.
then Walter works for somebody that pictures I took of a great big 9-pointer that was
Old Larry
20
Smith.
25 inches wide. It was
In town.
in town. It was walked right up my driveway. I was going bow hunting, and that thing was walking right up the street right beside me.
You're going to Ohio to deer hunt.
So
That deer's walking up
yeah,
Parkersburg.
I drove over in the graveyard and was blowing my grunt calling. The guy's like, "Well, shoot it." And I was like, "I can't shoot it."
Can't shoot it there.
Yeah. But I did take a lot of nice pictures of it.
Right.
And then when Walter said, "Oh, there's this deer right here at this place," I'm like, "Oh, I got the picture of it."
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat to see the end of it.
Well, I think it's necessary that they do those urban hunts to thin them out, because if not, there's just more of them getting hit by cars and everything. But
Yeah.
but every time that there's a big buck like that people start to recognize that they're feeding it in their backyard all the
Yeah.
time. Whenever somebody does shoot it, even if they shoot it 100% legit and legal, it does make a lot of people mad.
It does.
When that guy killed that big buck a couple years ago, I mean, for weeks, all I seen was pictures and videos of it coming up to people's backyards and eating out of the bird feeders, and it made a lot of people mad.
There's a pure albino doe out where I live, out in New England area there, and I just know someday somebody's going to shoot that thing, and I already know how the locals are going to feel about
Oh yeah. There's
because it comes on my property all the time, and I see it all the time. People feed it. It's a known deer, and it's my 3rd year living out there, and it was there well before I got there.
right.
So the locals have definitely approached it at a more, we're going to conserve that one.
That's cool.
Everybody gets on the same page, but there will be some random person that shows up one day to hunt.
It'll walk off a couple miles.
It has no idea, or that deer will walk off and it'll get shot. Yep.
I think most hunters, all of us, part of it is a love of nature and a conservation part of it. It's not just kill.
That's right.
You got to love the woods and be in it a little bit because you spend more time doing that than you do shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Walter and I were talking about that the other day. There's so many anti-hunters that don't have any understanding of why we hunt or the reason behind it, or the fact that if we didn't hunt at all, there wouldn't be any deer. They would all end up with diseases and they wouldn't be here. The people that care about the deer the most are the hunters, and they spend the most money trying to take care of them and manage the herds and feed them and balance everything out. But you can't win that argument.
Every one of us here, like, in the spring, if we seen a deer with its head caught in the fence, we'd be over there cutting that fence.
Yeah, maybe they're helping.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Risking our life.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, it's not it's not a matter of cruelty. And just like the small broadhead, every one of us wants that perfect shot, to make it, painless for the tracking, but also,
Painless for the deer. You
Right.
do right by the deer. You don't want it to lay there and suffer.
No.
It'll be quick.
and we've all had those less than admirable shots too, where it hits a limb or you get a little.
Hey, you get buck fever.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's a live target.
and
And the deer's reaction is probably about 750 feet per second.
See,
Quite a bit faster than our fastest bows.
I filmed a buddy of mine shooting at a deer a few years ago, and we were 25 yards. It was a pretty good level change there, and it was an 8-point that was coming in all time. And I was like, "Why don't you come shoot this deer?" I don't want to shoot it, but he'd shoot it, and it come in perfect, 25 yards. I'm filming it. He shoots, and by the naked eye, it just looked like he overshot it. I was like, "How'd you miss it at 25 yards?" So then we go put it on my big computer and start slowing it down. And kid you not, dude, the shot was perfect, but that deer ducked so fast its brisket hit the ground, and he overshot it. And that deer spun and was
How
out
far was he?
25 yards.
In a compound?
Well,
Yep.
I did it 2 years ago. The year that you come up and helped me find my buck. 2 weeks before that, I missed one at 15 yards and
With your bow.
with my bow.
Well,
And I had another shot. It ran out 25 yards and missed again. I was ready to throw that bow out of the tree. I said, that bow is going. Luckily it didn't. I never.
world champion archery shooter over here.
Yeah.
You put $20 on the line.
And he can't handle the pressure. But I think the goes back to Walter and I saying shoot center mass of the body. The front of that body when that deer ducks, the back of his body doesn't duck deer as much. So brisket down, but center of the body still stays same elevation. You're not gonna.
So on a deer that ducks that well at 25, do you feel that's a situation where the bow is making too much noise? Maybe there's a whistle in it. What gives that away?
Nature's nature's that fast.
Well, yeah, I mean, but something clued that deer in.
Oh, he heard it.
Yeah, so just
The speed of sound is what? Isn't it 500?
It's like 600 something, I think. Have you ever had somebody shoot a bow, like they're standing here, the target's here, and then have you ever sat here while they shot it, so the arrow's crossing?
You can hear the arrow coming.
That arrow's loud
Yeah.
through
It's
the air.
moving a lot of air.
Yeah, we did it a few months ago, right after I bought that Hoyt. I was sitting here shooting it, and my buddy was sitting on the porch, and I was out in front of him shooting, and I played the video back, and I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
Like,
they
you could definitely hear it.
at SciTech, they used to have a 3D range, and one of the last targets was 100 yards at an elk.
Yep.
And you got a real good feel for it.
Yeah, that air.
You can hear that thing
Yeah.
coming real well.
Well, I also think it depends time of the year. I mean, if they're coming in chasing a doe or something and they're just oblivious and being stupid, not paying any attention, then they're not as likely to duck as, a quiet day and they're coming in to nibble on your corn pile or something.
Yeah, each deer is definitely different.
Yeah.
I mean,
The reaction time is so fast. I tell everybody if you're hunting on bait, especially with a crossbow, 20-yard pin out to 40, because they're going to duck into it every time. Forget about the 30-yard pin.
Yeah.
Is that what happened to you when you used your 20-yard pin?
Oh, yeah.
38 yards for sure.
oh, I'm sure he did.
Ducked right into him.
Ducked right.
Which I shot it. I usually leave when I shoot that single pin. leave it at 20 yards. Now I've got to where I leave it on 30 yards and shoot it up close and far away. So
See, I use a single pin adjustable, and I set it at 25 yards.
Yeah.
And then I practice with that same pin from 15 yards to 40 yards
without moving it.
without moving it.
So you know where your bow hits.
And usually, at ours, it's dropping 10 inches at 40 yards.
Right. And I don't even think it's quite that bad when you're in a tree stand at elevation.
Probably, yeah.
That 25-yard pin out to 40, I feel I don't have to move it.
So go right ahead.
You have a dial, but you just don't use it?
Correct. Yeah. Now, if I'm like out to a certain distance, so like I'll set all my pins for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it'll go out to. But when I hunt, I leave it at 25, range it. And if it's anything out to 40, I'll shoot with the 25-yard pin.
Yeah.
Just make a little bit of adjustment on it, just like mentally. And
if it's 60, you
now,
most likely have time to make.
Yeah. Now, if it's walking at 50, 60 yards, that deer I shot in Illinois a couple years ago, same setup, but I shot it at 60 yards.
Yeah.
And out past 40, all the lines are marked 40, 50, and just range it, change it then. Yeah.
I'm not good enough to shoot past 40, so I don't even worry about that.
I don't like to, but
yeah, if it's out there feeding,
rare occasion.
and if it gives you an opportunity, well, it's head down, and I think you have that opportunity to take the shot.
Yeah, kill them unless you shoot at them.
Well, I'm sure you're probably the same way, but when I'm shooting at my house, I'll shoot more at 40, 50, 60, 70 than I will at inside of 30. And then when I do shoot inside of 30, I shoot way better.
Oh, way better. Makes all the difference. We've been practiced with this 3D, and it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of bow are you shooting, Josh?
Shooting that Matthews 27. I really like it.
That's what you're hunting with?
Yeah. Just small, compact.
Rage broadhead?
Shooting the Rage. After I had the long track job, I went to Rage the next deer. Shot that first doe, and it looked like I hit it with a hatchet.
Been shooting Rage ever since?
Been Rage. I've personally shot the 3 blades, but...
How many deer you figure you've killed with the Rage?
Oh, I've shot at least 10, 12 deer with the Rage now. That's most of the last bucks I've shot never made it out of sight.
Say how many of them you had to track.
30 seconds, so they were on the ground 30 yards to 40 yards away from the tree stand.
I think the only deer we've tracked with the dog for you was just for practice.
Yeah. Shot that doe there. She took a step, hit her a little bit farther back, but
I don't think we've had to track any of them.
Not after that, really. All practice.
And you're going to stick with the Rage?
Oh, my, yeah. I mean, I don't want to do a commercial for them, but it ain't fair.
You going to stick with the bear?
Probably.
You going to stick with the bear?
No, I think you ought to just take this Hoyt I got here.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it comes with a hefty price tag, too.
I'll probably buy another one before next year.
If I spend, if I, this year was my first year and I was successful, and it just drives the spirit to do it more.
Yeah.
But if I stay at it consistently, and the past couple of years I have done the one thing that I haven't done, which is spend time. It takes time if you're going to be successful. You can kill deer anytime you want, especially in West Virginia. There's too many of them. But if you're going to get a large buck, you got to spend some time. And I put that time in, and I plan on doing it again. And I will upgrade for sure once I've proven to myself that, it's what you need. It's where, and I don't tear my shoulder back apart. So
yeah, how's your shoulder doing?
It's holding up under the strain, but I got 50 pounds in me, and that's it.
What did you do different?
I went to physical therapy for a year. And
did you have surgery?
No, my doctor decided it was non-surgical just to go to physical therapy, and they put these rubber bands on me and this, that, and the other. And I thought, man, what a joke. I didn't think it was doing anything, but sure enough,
but it helped.
It did help.
So you're shooting 50 pounds.
50 pounds. And, the way I know the shoulder's not perfect is that's all I can get.
Right.
And, I'm a big person. I can pull a lot of weight, prior to the injury. So,
but you've got a complete pass-through this year.
50 pounds did it. Yeah, complete pass.
So, Cole, he went and bought this Hoyt RX, might have been an RX-7 carbon off a guy. He doesn't know anything about bows. He texted to me, and told me how much it was. I'm like, that seems like an awfully good deal. So he went and got it. It was a 50-pounder. Yeah. And he's like, heck with it. I'm just going to shoot it. And he'd never killed a nice deer with a compound before. And he killed a 130-inch deer this year with it. Same thing. Shot right through it. Made it 60 yards. Yep.
I like
over, yeah.
The first range I shot was old Darton 20 Max. Yep. Yeah, 38 pounds, as much as it would shoot.
Yep. Don't hit him in the shoulder. Yeah.
No, I shot right through the ribs, and it shot clear through them. So
I think, like you said, if you get the good shot in on them,
stay away from the shoulders.
Yep.
So
shoot the ribs.
Have you seen Bomar's new broadhead? So it's like a Rage, but the blades are like spring loaded, so they won't break the ribs. Like if it comes to, they fold out, but then they can they pivot in, I think. So like it hits a rib and it can shrink and goes through, and then they spring back open.
So don't break the blades.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that,
I have no idea if it'll work or not. It seems it basically looks like a Rage with spring loaded blades that can fold back in and pop back out.
My first experience with Rage, and I never shot a deer with it, but the first time I ever bought them, they had like a rubber band that held. And today it's a plastic clip, and if you snag it on a blade of grass, that's over.
Well,
yeah,
they have new ones that are called collarless.
No collars.
Yeah, no collars. That's what it is.
The
so
tag's high.
I shot an NAP kill zone for a couple years. And basically, it's like a Rage, but that didn't have the collars, and you just squeeze the blades together, and they just pop together. Mm-hmm. And I like that part of it because they pull them in and out of your quiver, and it doesn't screw up that collar. They don't fall off. But I went back to the Rage. But yeah, they have the no collars now.
Well, that's if I had to put a knock on them, it's that.
Yeah, that little collar. Like I find myself having to screw them off the arrow. And then rotate that little collar back around and put it back on and tighten it back up. But
that's the biggest problem I see with the Rage is user error.
Yeah.
The carrying them in your quiver too long.
Just you better check them every time you pull them out.
There's the biggest complaint I hear is people saying that they deploy early, but I think that's user error.
I think it's user error mostly,
and that's probably why they come up with this new no collar design, because you can't screw it up. You hear it click, then they're there. But I don't know how much harder it is for them to deploy.
Yeah, I don't know how they saw that, but they got better eyesight than I do if it's deploying early.
Yeah. You see your arrow. Yeah.
Oh, just the flop of it. Yeah.
The air messes around. But when you were talking about tracking his deer, it made me think of something. You said every time it would get to a tree stand, it would kind of veer off of.
Like it knew where they were at.
And I don't know if you guys remember, but I wounded that big 9.
The big 9. How many tree stands walked by?
And we tracked that thing
to every tree
miles.
And every scrape. We knew every scrape from
where I shot that deer. It ran basically straight line until we gave up to the highway. 2, 3, 4 miles away, and it ran under 10 tree stands and 50 scrapes.
It knew where
it showed us everything.
It knew where they all was.
Yeah.
It showed car hood scrapes. Remember that big old car hood scrape? I mean, it was huge.
I just couldn't believe that. I mean, that deer, obviously its core area was right there where I shot it, but it was obviously traveling a lot farther than that. Like, it didn't run that far just to run. Like, it knew where it was headed.
That was 2 miles in a straight line.
And it was back the next week because I had it on camera.
Well, what's crazy,
we run it out of the country.
Yeah, what's crazy is I never got another trail cam picture of that deer that year, but I seen it from the same tree stand I wounded it. Like 2 weeks later, it walked by out of distance. And then the next year, I started getting trail camera pictures of it again.
And it got killed close to where...
It got killed within a few hundred yards of where I shot it. Yeah.
Not far at all.
Gun season.
He would always be in Dad's yard, eating underneath apple trees. Which had all kinds of...
Which is kind of crazy if you really think about it, because it's not close. I mean, it's close, but it's not real close from where you were getting pictures of it to where I shot it. I mean, it's probably a mile. A straight line almost.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but Penn State did a 10-year study where they tagged hundreds and hundreds of deer. And for 10 years, they studied that. And I haven't read all of it, but it's amazing some of the behaviors and patterns that they seen in the whitetail.
Is this the one where they had the big block of timber?
Yeah.
And they sectioned off certain parts of it and let people hunt it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. And in one case, the one story that they tell, there was this one buck, and it had kind of lived in a 1 square mile area its whole life. And then just one day it took off and went like 5 miles away. And then it came right back to that area. And the next time it went to that exact spot, it died. It died there.
Real.
So it went 2 journeys in its life, and one of it was to die. And they don't know why. So it's an interesting thing how they travel, and whether they really see that stand or whether they just have a sense of it. That's an interesting.
I think they know there's human.
Yes, a presence. Of
Yeah.
Well, they know any kind of pressure,
sure.
Disturbance. Like,
And they remember. I don't think the big bucks forget. If they did, they would never come back. They'd be lost.
I think the
They'd be wandering around lost. I don't think they forget.
I think the pressure is what ruins most people from killing their target deer. Like, every time you go in there, you cut that chance of killing that deer out of that same spot, in half. Like, intrusion is the game killer when it comes to that. There's some studies that say they can feel like the cell cameras too.
So I'm kind of wondering that, because I'm seeing a lot of deer pictures jumping for no reason.
Yeah.
And
So now they have these like grounders, or I don't know what they call them, but basically it's supposed to remove the like magnetic field and whatever that the deer feel from those trail cameras.
Might be something when it's on video. There's not so much on the picture. Maybe I don't see it in the picture by the time they react to it. The picture's passed. But in the video, they'll walk right in. And as soon as they get into that whatever it is, the shine, the infrared, the coyotes are doing the same thing.
I've noticed that, especially with the cell cameras, that I have way better luck on getting pictures if I put them up high.
Yeah.
Like, I noticed it a lot this year. Regular regular trail cameras, you can put waist high, whatever, and get
it don't
pictures.
seem like it affects.
Doesn't seem like it bothers them so much. But the cell cameras, like, I had pictures multiple times this year. Cell camera, say this high, deer come in and stop, look right at it, turn around and walk back the way it came. Take that.
Get one picture.
Yeah, take that cell camera. So I started taking a 3-foot step, putting it on a tree, climbing up that step, putting it in a screw-in mount, putting that camera 10 feet up in the air, and then it's like they don't have any idea it's there. I don't know if they can feel it or if
I
they
did it in Wayne cornfield
something
this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely made a difference.
I
come
think
in,
they
hit
see
the stripes.
something.
Yeah.
I think they see a little bit of a flash or something.
Well, and I run 2 cameras right beside each other, and
Amazing what one catches at the other.
oh yeah, it lights up the deer. One camera,
When one camera flashes,
everybody's
the other
plowing
one triggers.
that deer
nighttime.
looks like you got a spotlight on it.
But
That's
it's
it.
right.
I've got a stealth cam, and it does make the tiniest of clicks.
Yep.
It goes on.
That's what I use stealth cameras.
Yeah. It's very faint,
But you can hear it.
I can hear it because I know it's happening. And I wondered, if a deer would be affected by that, because I don't think they'll have an awareness of what it is like I do. I mean, I know that it's taking the picture, so I hear that click. Whether they hear it or not, I don't know, but it
But one thing's for sure is a deer doesn't know what a camera is.
Yes.
But when you put that camera up and it's new, not only is there something that they could see that wasn't there, limbs, you're setting the camera up right, you're dumping out corn, minerals, whatever. It's not just the camera, it's the fact that you were
Human
there.
presence.
Yeah, you were there. Then you can't hide that no matter what you do.
No, we're lucky to get away with it the way we do now. I mean,
It's hard to beat that nose.
Yeah.
I can't beat my dog's nose. I'm sure I can't beat a deer's nose.
right.
yeah.
So do you do any form of scent control on yourself when you go in to put your corn piles out or check your game cams or?
Rubber boots. That's about it, to be honest with you.
I try not to hide.
Yeah.
I think when you hide and sneak, you trigger a predatory instinct in them that makes them more afraid. If they can hear you and see you at a distance, they don't seem to be as bothered.
So yeah,
as
it's like
when
riding
you're sneaking.
when you ride by on a four-wheeler, they just look at you.
Yeah,
But if you're walking, it's
especially if you're hiding and sneaking, that kicks in that predatory. And
I think if I had a farm that was my own that I could, cut trails to get to, I would drive a tractor everywhere I went on that place. It's just, I mean, they're not as spooked by the side-by-sides and four-wheelers as if you were on your feet walking, but they are not afraid of the tractors at all. I don't just, especially in farmland and stuff. I got some permission to hunt this piece of property this year, and I asked the farmer, I said, can I take my side-by-side, go put out corn? He said, yeah, you can if you want, but if I were you, I'd just take my tractor. I'm like, all right, cool. So we go get his big tractor out of the barn, and I fill the bucket full of corn, and there's a big field right there beside his house, probably 400 yards long, and I take off across that field in the tractor, and there's a deer come up out of the edge of the woods, just standing there looking at me. A few more come up out of the woods. I come over this little knoll. There's a doe laying in the middle of the field. Kid you not, I drove from me to that window away from it with that tractor, and then it got up and started following me on the tractor. He's like, they're not afraid of the tractor, but they're afraid of my four-wheeler. I'd just take the tractor. So every time I ever went out there, he'd be like, he'd come out and he'd fire up that tractor, throw the corn in it, and go drive across the field. And they didn't care at all. I've watched a few podcasts where some guys said the same thing. He's like, everybody's worried about scent control. He's like, humans sit there afraid of. He's like, douse yourself in diesel fuel. It won't bother him at all.
Our buddy Steve said that he was hunting out of that gravity wagon.
Yeah.
Broke down. Yep. They left it in a field full of corn, and he said he was sitting in the gravity wagon. The deer, they'd open it up and dump that corn out and let them come up and eat it.
Yeah.
He said he'd be standing right in the gravity wagon itself, and they wouldn't even look up. And he said he'd be shooting them out of that gravity wagon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially farmland that's been farmed forever. Like, if you're out there, farmers are out there getting covered in diesel fuel and grease and oil and whatever.
Yeah, that farmer's not worried about hunting.
No, they're not worried about it.
Yeah.
And the deer's not afraid of it.
Yep.
And then you get us that
Didn't you think?
we got ozonics and scent control and get up in the tree and get busted.
You look at how many other hunters just walk out there and shoot one. Don't care, That guy that killed one close to me, the farm I'm hunting this year. I mean, first time in there, they shot that big buck we had on camera.
Well, some of it's luck. The scent control, I think, is very important. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do. It's the wind. Like you play that wind, then Chris Brackett was talking the other day. Well, it's been a few weeks ago. He's like, man, I haven't washed my hunt clothes in 5 years. He's like, I just don't go if the wind's bad.
That's it. You can't beat their nose.
No.
Well, did you think about it 30 years ago? No, I didn't. I mean, we was kids. We just went hunting.
Yeah.
And we killed deer.
Yeah. I mean, you can get away with it a little bit better with scent control, maybe, but the wind's key. But you got to play that wind to even figure out which way they're going to come from that day. So
that's right.
That changes everything. So you don't bait.
I do not.
You bait. I bait.
The land I hunt is so small. If I didn't bait, I probably wouldn't see a deer.
Right.
I don't have flats of oaks and fields of corn and soybeans, so I got to kind of lure my deer in.
Well, I mean, everybody I know, 98% of everybody I talk to,
somebody's selling food out.
Is feed. Yeah. And
in my opinion, if you're hunting a corn pile or under an oak tree, food is food.
It's a food source.
Food source. I don't see any difference in putting bait out there or going out there and hunting. Let me see you go out there and catch a fish without using bait.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, it's nothing.
If you're gonna hunt, if you're gonna hunt deer where there's no food source, anything but knee level and down is deer food. You about just have to be in the parking lot at the mall.
Yeah.
On the concrete if you're gonna be somewhere where there's no deer food.
Yeah. It's just like the Midwest, all those bean fields and cut corn fields.
I'd be tickled death to go sit on a bean field.
Yeah.
Big corn field. I just don't have the option.
Yeah. It's different around here. Like the place I killed my deer at this year, it's farmland and there's some farmland around it. But if you really figure up the percentage of cornfields or bean fields versus hardwoods, it's a small percentage of, 2% of the land is ag versus all the hardwoods around it, I would say. It's not like Illinois where you go out there and you got these little draws and thousands of acres of just open ag fields, and you're hunting these little fingers, and all those deer are going to travel that. Here, you're hunting thousands of acres of hardwoods, and everybody hunts it, and everybody's putting out corn piles or whatever they think works better than something else.
I'm fortunate in the fact that, where I hunt, I have 108 acres, and it's bottomland out there, and there is corn being grown on every side of me, and there's a lot of, it's food sources, but it's just natural food sources, right. Stands of oats.
Hayfield. You got a hayfield down there.
Yeah.
The deer action without any bait.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, like
plus there's so many deer, right?
So many deer. And that hayfield that's on my property is 3/4 of a mile long.
Right.
It's enormous. So
most likely, if you was to dump corn, they'd eat it all faster than you could feed them anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And then dump a truckload there.
That's definitely the difference in West Virginia and Ohio. Like, I dumped out 1,000 pound of my field out here, a month and a half or so ago, and it made it 2 weeks, and it was gone. If I dumped out 1,000 pound of corn on my Ohio property, it mold. They just don't.
Some areas are different too.
Yeah,
sure.
Where you're feeding?
Yeah,
where you're feeding that right now? Truckload a week.
Yeah, they could.
It's also a different time of year. It's cold.
You couldn't even get them to eat the corn back in November
when the acorns were on the mast. We had a big mast year.
It molded.
Is there cornfields around there?
Where I'm hunting right now, there's no cornfield, but where I've always hunted, yes.
Yes.
Cornfields, plenty of corn right there. Soybeans.
Yeah, that farm I hunt there, it's a couple hundred acres of corn, and they don't ever hardly eat my corn piles like early season. They usually never really start burning up the corn pile till like January.
Yeah.
That seems like where you killed your deer was solid acorns, wasn't it?
Solid acorns.
It was a big acorn flat.
It's the first flat up a pretty large hill, and it is nothing but, hardwoods, oaks. It's a pretty good stand, of trees right there. So, and then 80 yards down the hill is that field. It's a 40-acre field, and it's just the creek water. It's a pretty ideal location. So for me, using corn piles, it's not necessary. Now, would it be beneficial, like during bow season, where you have a more, they're more predictable? Probably,
Probably early season before the acorns start dropping. It seems like
once the acorns fall on a big mast year, corn piles are done.
Oh yeah,
they won't even eat that.
It showed this year. I mean,
it's what
your tracking was down right off the.
Yeah, that was slow in the beginning.
Last year it was crazy. So
no acorn target last year.
And one thing I noticed that me and you talked about is a particular oak tree will put out acorns that are preferable.
They ripen.
They won't be bothering these at all, but they'll.
It's the timing of it, yeah. So there's a big oak tree in my front yard right here, and man,
it's a pin oak, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. And whenever that thing dumps a bunch of acorns, it's crazy, man. You can look out there any time in the night, and there's 10 of them underneath that tree. Yeah,
I got a huge pin oak in my yard, and they just hammer it.
And there was a oak tree on this piece of property I was hunting this year. And I'd walk by it and put a camera on it, and there was just thousands of acorns on the ground. And for whatever reason, the deer they didn't touch it. Maybe there now. Yeah, probably now. Yeah, that was also on the edge of a cornfield too, so maybe that had a play in it. But I don't know. It would be interesting. I know that there's some people like these tree guys. I've listened to some of them that they have like their theories and try to like make these certain trees that you plant or whatever that the deer prefer the acorns and such from. But I'm not sure.
There's like 30 persimmon trees on that same flat where those hardwoods are, and you'd think that'd be good, but you go out there today and every one of those persimmons is still on those limbs. It just doesn't look like they fell. They
just didn't fall. Well, it has a lot to do with the frost.
Yeah. So they died on the vine and shriveled up right up there on the branch. They never did come down. And I do believe it's because we had a warmer season. We didn't get that early, real thick frost. So, but yeah, I definitely hunt food sources. I just don't provide it to them.
Yeah.
I'm more of a welfare hunter.
Well, it definitely gets expensive. Yeah.
A lot of work.
A lot of work.
Your
Dedication.
You're spending a lot of time taking food out, worried about having it there for the weekend, and you're missing out on a day or two of hunting.
Oh, yeah.
You got to go get the corn. You miss that day. Then you got to take it out of it. You miss another day. So,
yeah,
I've already seen several days that I missed when that deer was already there. I mean, it should have been there.
Now that we've fed them all year, I feel like I want to keep feeding them.
Yeah.
Because now's the hard time.
Now's the hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I want to get them through the hard time.
I called you last weekend and just asked what you were doing. You're like, I'm feeding. I was like, well, I was going to come out and see it. You're like, well, I'll let you know when I'm done feeding. I'm like, you already tagged out.
Next year.
Yeah.
That just shows you, how dedicated we like keeping up with them.
Which takes me back to the fact that a lot of the anti-hunters and stuff don't understand how much we actually care about the deer. And I know, me and you have had this conversation before, deer that we've had 2-3 years of history with, and then you do finally kill it. It's like,
You're sad.
You're super pumped up to kill it, but then you're like, oh, man.
It's
over.
Yeah.
First time I check that trail camera, and I know he's not going to be on there. It's almost disappointing.
Yeah.
This deer, I had more trail camera pictures of that deer for 3-year span than I have any other deer, and I wanted that deer so bad, and then it's over. Yeah, I'm glad I get to look at him every day, But I don't know. I don't think people like that understand that people like us as hunters can care for something and still hunt it. You know what I mean? But we definitely can, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only killed two or three deer in the last 5 years.
Right.
But I fed them plenty of corn. I could have bought several beef.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a lot to think about. I know. I haven't put out as much corn this year as the last, previous years, but I probably still bought 5 ton of shelled corn this year.
That's a bunch.
Yeah.
Best thing is don't keep track.
Yeah.
Don't tell you.
It's rare. Yeah. So
my wife likes it. She loves to hunt. She wants corn there when she goes.
I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. Like, I hunted for 2 weeks straight to kill my deer this year. And before that, it was just like hunt here, hunt there, whatever. Yeah. But I was on one of the pieces of property from April till now, still feeding or checking cameras dozens of times. We
all year long
took tractors out and put food plots in and hang tree stands and cameras and carry corn day after day after day after day after day to hunt 12 days.
Well, leaving that camera out all year, it's interesting because, what spring comes and how much corn is already out of their, coming out of their head. Turkey season comes, and
what
it's pretty neat.
There when,
and you recognize them right off the bat. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah, without the antlers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I like my corn pile is I want
inventory. Yeah, it's the inventory side.
I don't want to accidentally shoot a younger deer that could have been potential bigger deer. I like knowing what deer it is, picking a deer, going for that deer, and shooting him on the X if I can.
Yeah, that's been our goal for, I don't know, the last 10 years.
I like the controlled shot. I try to shoot 22 yards.
Yep.
At 22 yards, I usually use my crossbow. At 22 yards, it's usually quick. It's fatal. This year, the deer ran 18 yards and was done. I like that controlled.
So
more of a controlled hunt.
You don't feed corn, but you still run trail cameras. You run cell camera?
I have 2 cell cams and then 2 just
regular
older cameras.
So how many pictures a night are you getting on your cell cameras?
It's probably a pretty good blend. It's probably 60-40, 60 daylight, 40 at night.
Yeah.
But what I get on night is, the night ones are usually the larger deer.
Right. I was just, as we were talking about inventory, I'm sitting here thinking, you got 108 acres. You're not feeding the corn pile. I mean, what bucks are there that you have never got pictures of?
Oh, well, you don't know, do you?
No.
Are you gonna put any mineral licks out?
I do have a mineral lick out. Like one of those apple infused deals. I have one of them. But to your point, I had that camera out since August, and it went through the whole time, all hunting season. And then January, I sent you that video of the deer that I had never seen before.
Dandy.
And it's a monster.
Yeah. The plus side is you don't have to change batteries all the time. That's my problem. Is I was running 12 stealth cell cameras this year, and having to change batteries in them every 5 days.
I bought the stealth solar battery pack. I don't change batteries.
Yeah.
And in October and November, they took 1,800 pictures a piece, and it never went below 3 bars, even in the overcast days.
I tried one of those solar batteries with the lithiums or whatever, but I don't know. The ones I bought, maybe there was something wrong with them because they didn't work at all for me, really.
Well, me and Walter decided, I tried the Tacticam, the little cell battery and it's worked great. I mean, I bought rechargeable. It's worked good. I take 2 home and go back out.
And how long does it last?
Oh, I'm getting every bit of 6 weeks or better, and it takes quite a few pictures.
But not on a cord.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on
really
on a corn pile. I'm getting at least 6 weeks out of it.
It's the regular Tacticam pack.
Yeah. I think
for the price, as far as buying batteries, I mean, it's worth spending the $50.
Well, yeah, because I mean, every time you change batteries, it's
and hopefully they'll hold up through next year. And that's money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have a small external 12-volt battery on my Tacticams in a ammo
box, which we talked about.
Probably get 2 months.
Yeah, because
out of mine.
You bought the power cord with the ends on it and wired it up, right?
Yep, about every 8 weeks. Now my Brownings, we bought the Browning Defenders. Yep. I've had one running for over a month now on my coyote traps, and it's still 100% battery. So
I've got a stealth camera out that has been out since before I killed my deer this year. But it's not on cord. It was on a little ridge. It was full of scrapes. And for whatever reason, every buck on this farm always walked through there. And I'm still getting pictures of all the bucks that I did, were there. And it's been on red. Like the battery's been dead for like a month, and it's still sending me pictures.
Yeah, that's what you said about Tacticam. Is they go to red, and
it still sends
pictures. But
my Blackgates, I put my Blackgates on my corn piles, and I only changed batteries one time.
Yeah,
those little muddies we buy, them little combo packs of 4-packs. I mean, they do good. I mean, I can get 2-3 months out of them sometimes, and I think it's cold weather hurts them, but
slows it down.
Springtime, those are easy ones just to go dump off wherever.
What was the? I hate even the fact that I can't remember this guy's name. I'm drawing a blank. We were talking about the other day as you wanted to go take his master class.
Don Higgins,
yeah. I've literally watched all of his podcasts, and I couldn't remember his name. But he just put out a video the other day. They're making their own cell cameras now.
Nice.
Yeah. He was talking about it. He's like, for years I've been thinking about trying to develop the perfect one that has the battery life and everything. And so I don't know. Be interesting to see what. Yeah, I'll try that for sure. Be interesting. You guys know who Don Higgins is?
I do not.
No.
If you want to learn something about some whitetail, just watch his YouTube.
Property management.
Yeah.
Oh.
That and just some of his tricks. I think he's killed 5 or 6 200s. Yeah. And like he rarely hunts more than just a few days a year. Like he does all the work all year long, but like he'll one of his videos, he's like, I don't like to go out there and sit. I just like to go out there and know I'm going to shoot it. And
he usually knows.
He usually does, yeah. He had some of his family come in this year, and they were hunting a couple of deer, and he's like, well, hopefully we'll shoot this deer or this deer, and they killed both of them. Yeah. He uses those rope scrapes.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I seen where they said now's the time to get your rope scrapes ready.
So yeah, he said about time for like shed hunt or whatever is when he starts making his ropes and getting them out
and hanging them so
the scent, everything goes away, and time to to use them. But
I tracked deer for several people that had the rope scrapes out this year. But anywhere from 3/4 to inch and a half, inch and a quarter size rope hanging over a scrape.
and he takes that rope and he goes up a little ways and ties it off. That way it can like shred it
and frays the bottom of it.
I have one there on my uncle's. It's been there 3 years now.
The deer,
and that's great.
love them.
They like it. I mean, I stuck it where they scraped, but
right.
they hit it. So
Yeah.
Many of my trails, when I've cut a few of my trails, will be a grapevine.
Yeah.
And I'll cut that grapevine off, and it'll be hanging just about eye level, and over the scrape right at that grapevine.
So, I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on like the Tinks 99 or whatever deer urine scent that you can buy? Like, you think that stuff works or not?
Timing.
Yeah.
Oh, that first time when I was that kid, me and Walter built that old wooden tree stand, and I stuck that Tinks out, and I watched this buck walk across this ridge, and he come right to it and stuck his nose right in that Tinks. So
Really?
my uncle Mitchell, he said, "Oh, you got aim low," so I aim low, and boy, that deer had a set of springs in him. He jumped so high above me. Old Darton 20 MX and 12 years old. That got me hooked. I mean, thanks to the uncle and all them guys, while we was kids,
I mean,
let's shoot. Man, Walter shoot out long.
Uncle Mitch was the lab coat guy when it comes to bows.
Oh, yeah. They knew it all,
Yeah. Well, maybe that's where you got it from.
Yeah, your dad didn't shoot. He said, "Hey, I'll go bow hunting," but it was a shotgun.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can't hit him. So,
I think there's things that lure deer, and then I think there's things that lure hunters.
That's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, Don was talking about it. He's like, man, I think all these deer urines are the biggest scam there is in the hunting industry. He's like, deer pee in the woods everywhere. So
the amount of urine that we use, we buy a little tiny bottle, a couple ounces, and a deer pees 8, 10, 12, 15 ounces.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
earlier talking about the deer I missed. Well, I just peed out my tree, right down.
Well, that's
That deer
definitely
come right to my tree and was licking on the branch, and I thought, well, I got to wait. And he walked about 10 yards. I missed. Holy sh!
yeah. That's definitely a myth. They saying you can't pee in the woods or whatever. That's urine is just it's just urine.
All urine turns to ammonia in
Yeah.
about 20, 25 minutes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Made a scrape, and I had 11 bucks come
How many times we
videotaped it that day.
Got
I
pictures.
feed in, videoed it, and how 11 bucks that day walked right to that scrape. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Human urine definitely doesn't have any kind of effect on it at all.
good effect.
Yeah, good effect, not a negative effect. I mean,
So I was tracking a deer for a guy, and he had his corn pile up, and he hadn't had any pictures. It was November. It was like the 6th day of November, and he had shot a big one, but he had his corn pile running, hadn't had no bucks on camera, and about 8 yards away there was a primary scrape, so he freshened that scrape up and put a camera on it. Now I think he made the scrape. It was a mock scrape, and he put a camera on it. And none of the bucks had showed up on the corn pile, but he had like 15 bucks in 2 days on that mock scrape. And I asked him what he put in there for urine, and he said it didn't matter, any kind of synthetic stuff. So I think a lot of times it was timing. When you dump it out. I think, when they're rut crazed, they may be a little easier fooled by the scent.
Well, yes. So I think as they get to that part where they're full bore rut and they're stupid, crazy, whatever, it's a little bit different.
Curiosity.
The curiosity, you can fool them a little bit. That earlier time, it's a little bit harder to fool them.
But
a little harder to call them in. It's hard,
I have put the urine out, and I feel like it spooked them off.
Yeah.
So it's I've had both effects. But now I've peed out my tree stand many times and never had any ill effect from it.
Now, I will say, the morning that I killed my deer this year, I was watching the cameras throughout the night, and that camera, so I had 3 cameras in the same hollow, and all of them were busy all night long. And when I crawled up in that tree that morning, I was like, all right, there must have been a hot doe or something in here last night, put scent in this whole hollow. And right off the bat, there was bucks, not with a doe, just literally nose to the ground, running zigzag, chasing everywhere. And it was, I'm sure there was a hot doe in there that night, and just filled that whole area. And then the deer I shot literally come running up behind me, no with him, just looking.
It's like Josh's.
Yeah.
Last year I seen it on camera, and I thought, well, shoot, it was 80 degrees when I shot. I walked in with a pair of shorts and tennis shoes. So
Yeah.
like, shoot, it's too hot.
Yeah.
And the hill I climbed was miserable anyway.
Yeah,
so
Straight up.
it was a hard one to go in after. But
So year before last, a buddy of mine, he shot a big deer, 150 inch deer, and he had a long walk in. So at the bottom of the hill, he took all of his clothes off, hunting clothes, everything, put it in his backpack, and he walked all the way up to the field, like barefoot and in his boxers. And when he got to the top, he put all his hunting clothes back on and climbed up in his tree. It was like 80 degrees out, and that deer walked in, he shot it. I don't know if it made a difference or not, but
that's the way Jared told me, you better get in there last year. I said, man, it's 80, but
He's coming.
it's there.
And it was early season, wasn't it?
It was November 6th.
Oh, it was a rut.
yeah.
It was during the rut.
Those magical days in November, you just got to go. You just never know.
And he came right in.
Yeah, well, I heard some does grunt. Does was making all the grunts. I'm like, that's strange, weird sound. I didn't even know it was does. I was like, man, that's a funny sounding deer. But once all them 6 does come out in that field, then he come right behind them.
Yeah.
And that was early. It wasn't real late, was it? It was an hour and a half
Yeah, it was an hour and a half before dark.
before dark.
Yeah.
And that deer didn't make it far, did he?
No, it only ran maybe 70 yards, but fell in the deepest ditch you could ask for. And Buddy, we drug, and he said that Buddy's had a couple of them fall in this one little ditch. It's so steep and deep.
That's where he went.
That's where it was. So it was miserable trying to get out.
So of all the big mature deer that you guys have killed, you have better luck in the morning or the evenings? I've thought about it myself, and every one of my big deer, except for that big West Virginia deer right there that I could think of, and that Ohio buck right there, almost all of them have been within the first 3 hours of sitting in the morning.
I've killed a few in the mornings. I prefer the evening.
I think when I think about all the deer that you've killed, I've helped you track and drag out, you have been mostly the evening.
Evenings.
I like that evening hunt.
50-50. I've shot them both sides of it. So
I pretty much quit hunt mornings until the last few days of October. I don't hunt the mornings anymore.
it's hard to get on your corn pile. If you're going to hunt, it's hard to hunt in the morning.
Yeah.
If you set away from it, you probably got a way better chance.
Yeah. That other deer above my kitchen table in there, I shot that in West Virginia years ago, and that deer started showing up for like 2 weeks. He was there every evening. He would come almost every morning, but he was there every evening before dark. And some of my buddies were like, "How you going to go there and kill him in the morning?" On first day, I was like, "I'll just wait till the evening to walk in." Like, well, why would you go in? I'm like, well, I'm not going to bump him out in the morning.
A lot of times I won't even hunt mornings.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yep. And then I went into the evening and shot him. But yeah, the last few years, I just haven't really hunted mornings until about October 28th or so.
Well, that funky buck I killed back here, Mom and Dad's, that was first day. I was sitting there watching hunting shows. Like, there ain't no way I'm going out. And they're like, oh, it's first day. Just like a kid, went out there and I hadn't even tore off my tags off my scent lock and screwed on broadheads. And it was 8 o'clock. Climbed a tree. I hung my bow up and I shot that deer in the first 5 minutes.
Yep.
Climbed that tree.
Yep.
I mean,
What's meant to be.
oh, it's just
Can't mess it up.
Yeah.
Most of my big deer I've killed in the first 5-10 minutes I climbed in the tree.
A lot of, yeah.
My first crossbow buck, I was climbing a tree and it was right out there, standing there tending the doe.
I had to pull the bow out.
I still had my rope tied to it, and it was sitting there watching me.
Yeah.
He called me and said, I just climbed up a tree and shot him.
Yeah.
Pulled the bow right back down.
I shot one at the old house. Was climbing up the tree, and I heard something. I looked up, and there was a doe in front of me. I'm halfway up the tree, and it's looking past me. It didn't even know I was climbing the tree. I snuck up the tree, and I heard something. A doe come running from behind me, and I turned around, and I could hear the grunting. And I pulled up my bow as fast as I can, and it was a 9-point coming. I shot it like 5 yards from the base of the tree, and shot it high. I was like, oh no, screwed up. And I caught that artery right underneath the spine and it stopped. And when it tumbled and fell, its back was touching the base of the tree I was in. Yeah. That Illinois deer I shot, I was talking to you and you're like, this morning is the morning.
Yep.
I was out there.
Yeah, because I bet you beat up.
Working.
It was, I hadn't been in the tree too long. It was, I remember looking over, that deer was walking across the field and I was like trying to adjust my eyes. It was still like early morning and I'm like, yeah, it looks like a buck. Looks like a decent buck. It's just 100 yards closer. I'm like, looks a little bigger. 100 yards closer, looks a little bigger. I'm like, yep, I'm shooting that one.
Yeah. You videoed it.
Yeah, that one's on video. I did like a whole 10-minute video of that. I looked at it the other day. It had
Luminoc.
Luminoc, yeah. That deer come across that field like 400 yards, and it could have went any direction, and it literally walked
just wide open,
perfect right in front of me, 25 yards, and I burnt at it and stopped and shot it. It spun around and flopped and died 30 yards from where I shot it.
For us to go out there is totally different. I mean, it's amazing how wide open space is.
Well, so I didn't even realize it. I thought it was a 10-point whenever it walked in, and then I seen as it was sitting underneath. Before it walked into the woods, it was sitting there eating some beans. I was like, that thing got an extra tine on that one side. But then I went back and looked at footage because I'd seen a big deer 3 days before that, and I looked back, it was actually the same deer. I didn't realize it was the same one until after I shot it. But
did it run out in the beans and die?
Well, it was a cut bean field, but yeah, it spun around, ran right back into that field, fell, got up, flopped, all goofy legged, and fell over.
You could see it from your tree.
Oh yeah, I videoed it. So walking in, shooting it, and falling over. Yep. And then I went out to Indiana the next year and shot that buck right at daylight, first morning of gun season.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Which one did you do the tribute video?
That one. That Illinois deer. Yep. But yeah, the other day I looked at it was I posted that 2000 the end of 2017 or beginning of 2018.
2017, 18.
Yeah.
Decatur.
Yeah, I made that video and I went to bed and it had like 5,000 views. And I was like, holy cow, I can't believe it's got that many views. I woke up and had 100,000 views. By the end of that day, it had 150,000. And the other day, it's still growing. It's almost 400,000. But you got 300-some thousand in the first 5 days.
That was pretty cool little town out there. We stayed out there and worked on that glass factory.
Yeah. I don't remember how far. I don't even remember how far I drove to meet you guys, but
it wasn't far at all. I mean, it was just a town.
Yeah, I think it was like 45 minutes away or something.
Did you tell me there was no deer?
It wasn't any deer were they?
But you guys were on the outskirts of Chicago, right?
We was in Ottawa, Illinois.
Ottawa.
Right around Star Rock.
But that's because they killed a bunch of them, right? They did whatever that kill off was, and
CWD kill.
So they were like shooting them at night. They'd put out these huge bait piles, and people would just come in and shoot them with ARs in the middle of the night, whatever, just wipe it.
That's what one of the operators was working at the dump. He said they was bringing dumpster loads of deer in a night. So
trying to stop the spread of disease.
Yes,
allegedly, yeah.
But we've seen a few, but come from here, you just didn't know where to look right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, back to some deer is just luck. Like I was just hunting 100 acres out there, and originally I went out to hunt public land, and this guy that we were staying with was like, I got a farm out here, just go hunt it. But it was 100, I think it was 100 or 130 acres, but like 80% of it was ag field, and there was just a couple little patches that you could like hunt. There was no rhyme or reason for that deer to walk 400 or 500 yards across a wide open field right to me, but it did.
What's meant to be, you can't make
it. Yeah, got lucky there, I guess. But
if it ain't meant to be, you can't make it happen.
Nope. So you shot your biggest deer twice.
Sure did. Wounded him with a crossbow and killed him 6 days later with a muzzleloader.
Muzzleloader. Yep. There was a bunch of us filming that day, and you called me. You're like, hey, I'm going to go kill that big buck tonight.
Flyer.
need to send a cameraman with me to film it, and I just didn't do it, but should have. But I remember when we skinned that deer, we were at Keith's house, and we found your broadhead
6 inches air in the broadhead.
in the spine.
Shot clean through the spine.
Yep, and the broadhead was still in the
Opposite tenderloin.
Yep.
Didn't hit the spine.
Right.
Just went right between the vertebrae.
Went between the vertebrae.
That deer was, my form pile was 32 yards, and I was using my 20-yard pin, my Excalibur crossbow, and I was aiming clear down right in the pocket, right behind the front shoulder down low, and I should have been hitting low and hit the deer in the spine.
Right.
It ducked over probably 18 inches.
Which takes us back to where we were talking about that 30 to 35 yard with a crossbow's bad.
It's the worst.
And don't try to shoot the heart and lungs. Shoot the center of the body. Yep.
So we had tracked that deer to the bedding area at about 400 yards and lost blood.
Yep.
And we decided from the looks of the area, from the looks of the blood, it was going to be a survivor.
Yep.
And I came back. See, that was on a Saturday maybe, and we tracked it on a Sunday.
Baby, I actually...
And I came back on Thursday because muzzleloader season started the following Friday.
Yeah.
So I put a corn pile up at 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. And the following Friday, the next day, I went hunting down the road till noon and seen a big buck, almost shot it, but I didn't think it was the same deer, but it wasn't limping. So I came back and checked my trail camera, and that was probably 2 o'clock.
He was there in the middle of the day.
At 1 o'clock, he was on my trail camera. I only seen half his horn.
Yep.
And the horn had only been on the ground for less than about 24 hours. But the bedding area and the water hole.
I remember you saying this is the only place that it's dry. This is the only place that there's water in this creek.
Knew he was going to come down there and drink, and I put my corn right there.
You took your climber in.
So when I went and checked that camera, I had my climber in the truck.
Yep.
And it was the first day of muzzleloader. So I checked the camera and seen him, and I went straight to the truck, got my climber, come straight back down. 4:30, he walked straight in.
Yep.
Shot him through the front shoulders. He ran straight underneath of me and went over and fell down 30 yards.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yep.
Come and helped you drag it out of there. And
Still my biggest deer to date.
Yep, 181 inches. What were the beams on that thing?
Like 28 inches.
Yeah.
A long one. It was 27 and 5/8 and 28 and an 1/8.
At 21 and a half or something inside
spread.
Yep.
12 and a half inch tines.
Yep. Big deer. Big deer. The what was your biggest deer? Was it the one that tracked 6 miles?
Probably the longest. I mean,
The longest track to date.
But did you kill
It's a 150, isn't it?
yeah, it's like 149.
the what did you kill last year? Did you have a drop tine on it?
Yeah, it gets 2 little funny drop tines off each side of the beams and split G2.
Yeah.
Cool deer.
Cool looking deer. It was.
And the one you killed last year's
It
what? 156 or what was it?
150s. You know, it was 150.
Mid 150s at least. You didn't score it.
Well,
We just
rough scored. It's like 156, but
It's got them brow tines forever.
Big brow tine.
Oh, they're
The
yeah, West Virginia deer. It's awesome.
Yeah.
have to send me a picture of it.
we'll do.
You just got it back from the taxidermist.
I did. Yeah, I got it in November of 22, and I just got it back.
Bill Mason mounted it.
Bill Mason mounted that for me.
It's beautiful.
It's the first one I've ever had Bill Mason do, and I'm sold. I'll do a commercial for him.
He
does that.
He's
job.
amazing.
Bill's amazing.
Yeah, it ain't cheap, but I'll tell you, the quality it's there. It just looks like you're looking at a deer in the forest.
It's alive.
It's pretty.
I think I have 14 or 15 deer mounted by Bill Mason.
Pretty wild. And I was just so, overwhelmed getting a deer that size. No, for me, the first, some people wouldn't consider that a trophy. I certainly did. And for the area, West Virginia.
He's bigger than any buck I've ever shot. West Virginia.
It's a big one. So I couldn't be happier with it. And the mount came out amazing.
And Josh got to hear you shoot.
Oh, yeah. Got to be right beside you.
Yeah, I got to ruin his day.
Share it all together.
I told him, I said, there's a pretty good chance that something come out of that honeysuckle, which the day before when we went up there and he showed me, we seen a buck.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice buck.
Nice one.
You don't think it was the same one?
No.
No, it definitely wasn't the same.
But it was a good one.
The first one we seen was wide but not tall.
Yeah.
And still a quality buck, but not particularly tall tines. And this one has 9.5-inch brow tines.
Oh boy,
Huge brow tine.
big brown tines.
It seems like it was 6 degrees or something that morning.
Oh, it was miserably cold.
I remember it was super. I thought, why? I remember telling Josh, I said, why would you even go to West Virginia and hunt on a cold day like this and take off work? I said, you ain't gonna get nothing but little deer. And then bam, you're not even an hour later, he calls me, Chris shot the big one. It's like mid-150s.
Yeah.
Wow.
And today, now that that was the first year of owning the property. So now that I've had it, I could probably put him in a place where I'm just not going to shoot his deer. I probably still
haven't figured out.
Well, it'll be hard to beat that deer in West Virginia.
I don't know. That farm seems like
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Something about it down there.
That when we get done with this podcast, I'll show you the deer I got on January the 4th. So it's definitely got another one out there.
Looks like a high deer.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I can assure you that it's not like that here. Like right here where we're at. I've got 50 acres here and been here 5-6 seasons. And
West Virginia's getting better with that. They are killing bigger and bigger deer every
Oh, yeah, there's definitely areas of it. I think the problem with this place is you can drive out any of these back roads, and there's all these little cabins, and gun season, people just rolling through with foilers, and they just kill a bunch of them. It's not like your parents' house and like where I used to live.
City Park.
Yeah,
corn.
Oh, yeah.
Window.
age classes. Tricks. They got to get to be 5 years old. If they don't get to be 5 years old, you just don't know what you got.
Well, the $2 limit over the next 5-year span will help.
Let's think about 1998. I shot that big one. The first one,
the big wide 9.
Yeah, the big wide 9 at our parents' house. That was big for there. That way.
That was huge.
Yeah,
the body was 9 feet long.
265-pound deer, West Virginia deer.
It was huge.
It was giant.
Yeah,
feet. I remember seeing the feet were unreal.
It looked like a steer. Every time I seen it out in the field, I'm like,
yeah.
That was before cameras, so
right.
It was just.
And then the next big one we seen was Jared's.
Yeah,
when Jared
killed a big 10 with muzzleloader, and he
wounded it with a muzzy, killed it with a thunderhead, wounded it, shot through the lungs, killed it, shot through the liver.
Yeah,
a year later. It had 8 inches of arrow and 2 of the fletchings encased in it almost looked like a green bean, about that long, a real hard case right by the lungs.
Yeah,
the inside the lung cavity.
He shot it a year later too,
Oh yeah,
that was a year later.
Yeah,
and that was the piece of the arrow and the 2 fletchings from the previous year.
That's crazy.
And that deer, it didn't lose. It didn't hurt that deer. It made it bigger. That deer actually
never acted like it was. Didn't have any ill effect.
But that's like another one of this magical areas. This has always produced big deer. Like
it does.
Every year that I can remember running trail cameras there was a 140 plus on camera.
Oh,
that was a mainframe 8-point, wasn't it?
Yeah,
with kickers and stickers and
that was.
And what did it score?
I think it was 168.
That's what I was thinking, mid-160s. It was a big giant. And for us back then,
really big. Yeah,
really big. That was one of the first big ones.
It's kind of weird, though. Maybe it's because it's close enough to the city and some of those deer, we've known those deer to travel miles and be in some of those housing developments than back where we used to live and hunt. But, there's no really ag anywhere around there for them to eat. There's not cornfields.
The river. Anywhere along the river.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I'm not anywhere near the river here.
Hit on the road right there.
Big jeans.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you remember, but I still got pictures of it. There was that mainframe 8 that got hit there, and I was coming through, and it had 16 points on it. It was a mainframe 8 and it had split brows and kickers and stuff all over the place. And I never had pictures of that deer, but
say that.
No, 96, that one got hit Dad's driveway. It had 21 points in June, so
yeah,
and it was just sticking out of its head. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Low pressure, I think, has a lot to do with it there. There's not a lot of hunting that actually happens in that area. And there's those deer get to go to places that are perfectly safe.
Sure.
And eat bird feed all day.
Absolutely.
They become 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Low pressure is a big thing.
the no pressure, but being able to get to that 5+ years of age that's everything for it.
Yeah, when they develop a brisket, you know, you got something there.
Yeah, the that deer I killed at the old house. I remember being Lee. I mean, I was 26 years old, 25 years old, something like that, and 27. Me and him could not pick it up and put it in the back of the side by side. We fought it for like 20 minutes, and finally I pulled its head and shoulders up as high as I could and ratchet strapped it to the top of the roll cage in the side by side, so I wouldn't mess the cape up, and we drug it 400 yards back to the house.
You remember Carolyn's first 8-point?
Yeah.
We tracked it down with Sunday.
Oh my gosh, we couldn't drag it out. We would drag it
Couldn't lift it.
a little bit at a time.
Could not load it on.
Couldn't get on the 4-wheeler. Yeah, that's right, because
drag it up that hill.
Yep.
So then we thought it would be easier to get the 4-wheeler down this big hill, and we knew it was too steep to ride the 4-wheeler out.
Yep.
But we planned on
walking
the 4-wheeler out with the deer on it. So we went and got the 4-wheeler and backed it down that steep hill to that tree, and then we couldn't load the deer on the front.
Yeah, we couldn't get the deer picked up.
We tried and tried.
It almost happened again the next time she kills.
Yeah, and then we finally got the deer on there and pushed it up there.
Yep. The
Luckily,
2 years ago, first day she killed that big 8-point, and
no, it was
you brought the 4-wheeler in. We drove it down there, and we just couldn't get it loaded.
the that deer that I shot this year, I didn't have anybody to come help me. I drug that thing out by myself.
Before I got there.
Yeah, I don't know what you were doing, but
I was tracking. I said, I'm on my way.
I said I'm not waiting.
I had it done before I got there.
But I got GoPro footage of that. I literally drag it like 10, 20 feet and stuff.
That's all right.
10, 20 feet.
2 deer I've killed, I drug out by myself.
The hardest drag I can think of in my mind was the Cookie Monster buck.
Yeah, it was tough. We make it 20 yards after trade.
Not only was the terrain just terrible, super
the antlers were just so burly. And
couldn't get a hold of it, but that deer was
field dress 210.
Yeah, they were dragging it out was miserable.
The last buck I killed was the drop time buck, and actually Matt Bertram and his brother came down and
got it out.
Yeah, but I didn't have to drag it at all.
Yeah,
I got lucky.
Yep. You shot that in the same spot that you shot the one 2 years before that.
10 years ago.
I came and
with
got
350 lead.
I came and got the guy.
I'd never been
there, and I pull up and the guy walks out and he's like, "You want my 4-wheeler and trailer?" And he grabs his 4-wheeler and puts the trailer on the back of it. And I go driving down this trail, no idea where
I hear
even
a
going.
4-wheeler coming, and I'm thinking, who's coming on the 4-wheeler? I look up and it's Justin. And I'm thinking, where'd you get a 4-wheeler? You ain't even never been here.
Yeah, I went down there and threw it in the trailer.
Talked to the neighbor and borrowed the neighbor 4.
Yep.
Thank goodness. It was a long drag.
Yep.
Oh, I think a side-by-side with a little truck bed in it is the best invention ever.
It is.
It's a game changer.
It's great.
Especially since we're 50.
Yeah.
Speak for yourselves. I'm not anywhere near 50.
You will be.
Yeah, I know. It feels like it. The one last thing that I know we wanted to touch on and we haven't yet was, we talk about how far we've tracked some of these deer, and Chris mentioned, he's like, well, if you were going to do that today, we would just cut it off and say it's a live deer. I know there's particular signs, but, explain it, what you would determine to be chasing the deer versus tracking a deer.
At what point are we hunting deer with the dog instead of
tracking it? Yeah, I think once you realize, you get over that certain distance and the type of blood, the amount of sign that you're not seeing.
Absolutely.
Depends
on what you're seeing. So for one, if you was hunting deer with dogs, you'd be turning a dog loose on a deer that's not wounded already.
Right.
When you go hunting rabbits with dogs, the rabbits ain't wounded. They're just out there waiting. And those dogs are not scent specific. Those dogs are going for fresh rabbit scent. Not necessarily one
particular rabbit, yeah.
But with any rabbit they can run, they're going to get on it and they're going to chase it. Same way with a coon dog or a bear dog. So I had a guy call me to track a bear once, and I called my buddy. I said, hey, you got bear dogs. You want to go track this bear? He said his dogs wouldn't do it because most likely they wouldn't do it because they're not trained to track the wounded scent. They're trained to track the freshest bear scent.
So if it ran across another bear or the closest bear or whatever, it's probably going after that versus the wounded bear.
So if I release my dog, I don't release my dog. I do it on track or on a leash in Ohio. We have to by law.
But states that you do.
Some states, they do release. But if they was to release a dog on a wounded deer, well, you're not hunting deer with a dog. You're trying to recover the wounded deer. So first, I want to do best by the deer.
Right.
If we wound it, we owe it to the deer to do every chance, all of our due diligence to get it back. And second, I want to do best by my dog, meaning I don't want to chase a deer that I know for a fact is going to be alive, that's probably going to show back up on camera in a few weeks. I don't want to spend hours chasing that deer. If I put my dog on a dead deer, a fatal deer, it's normally 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We got the deer. And the dog is normally not pulling and digging and lunging. If I jump a deer and it's alive, that dog's pulling hard. I mean, he's wanting to get that deer. He knows it's alive, and he knows we're falling behind. So he's pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. So in the beginning, I would track deer for
forever.
6 hours.
Just lucky.
Until you just couldn't go anymore.
We didn't know any better. One guy I was tracking a deer for, I tracked it probably 2 miles, and it was alive. And we had everybody else that was local there, not on the track, in a vehicle. They get ahead of us, and they'd say, hey, the deer just came through. You're on, you're following it. We didn't have a gun, and they didn't have a gun. So we wasn't hunting it, but we didn't know when to quit.
Yeah.
We was tracking it. My dog was still tracking that same wounded deer. So if I take my dog out and put him in the woods where there's not a wounded deer, we ain't going to track nothing.
Not going to track nothing.
He's going to run around and pee on bushes and play, and he don't know what to go after. Right. So with my dog, there's no such thing as being able to hunt deer with a dog. Right. There has to be a wounded deer, or you're not going to get very far. He'll tell you real quick.
So when the dog loses interest,
Buck will tell you,
and you're confident that the deer's not going to die, then that's when you say, all right.
Well, we seen it this year when she shot that deer with the 7mm. That was a pile of blood.
Yeah.
But, never.
When you go to a certain distance, if you make it, if you feel like the deer is hit in front of the diaphragm, you're seeing lung blood, you're seeing that pink color to it. If you make it over 300 yards, especially 400 yards, chances are that deer is not dead from that wound. Well, at least not at the time that I'm going to be there.
I know I've called off some tracks once we jump a deer, and you see it. Like, it'll jump up, and you can just tell. You can see where it was hit, high shoulder or broken.
For one, we know there's no corn in the blood.
Right.
There's no gut matter in the blood.
Yeah. And when it takes off, it's fine. Or when you start finding blood and scrapes.
Yeah, when you find the blood and the scrapes, then you have to tell yourself, what did you hit that's killing the deer?
There's nothing killing.
What's going to kill this deer later? If it's not gut shot, liver shot, behind the diaphragms, in the stomach, most likely it's not going to die of infection. Now, they do die of infection if they're shot in the front shoulder and the broadhead breaks off in that front shoulder.
But it may be weeks or months.
Usually like 6 weeks later.
They'll fester up, and I've seen them be shot in the shoulder, and you get trail camera pictures of them, they lose that hair on that shoulder, and then it starts getting pussy.
Yeah. So
that infection kills them, but it may not be for a long time.
Now that broadhead can stay in the neck, the backbone, the hind quarter, the body cavity, right along the lungs, and not kill them, but something about that front shoulder.
Yeah.
So you got to put together, you got to look at the blood, what's in the blood, what organs did you hit, and then the distance. If you make it over 600 yards, no beds, you're still finding blood, you're not seeing the failing deer, there's no sign of a failing deer, chances are you're going to start pushing it.
Yeah.
And that's the point where you probably ought to call your track.
Right.
You're probably not going to catch the deer.
Yeah.
You're not going to find him dead. Now, I do find some dead a long ways, but everybody tells you they didn't grid search, they didn't go look, they didn't lost it. But when you find a deer dead 1,000 yards away, a lot of times
somebody's probably been in there pushed it.
Probably something is pushed.
Yeah, because that deer, they almost all of them will lay down within that, before that 600-yard mark.
Yeah.
And they're almost all found dead within that 600-yard mark. It's when you get past that's when you start questioning, has it been bumped or is it just not fatally hit?
Now, most of the ones that ain't fatal, there may be a lot of blood, but it usually dries up, especially around 200-300 yards.
Yeah.
And if you make it to 600 yards, there just ain't much blood.
It's not much there.
2 or 3 times last year, I tracked a deer almost 3 miles and found them dead.
Yeah.
But those deer were leaving so much blood that we just didn't want to quit on such a good blood.
Right.
And they
if it's still there, why quit?
Yeah, and during the rut, we don't know what pushed them that far. Somebody's dog,
Well, I mean,
coyote, other bucks.
If you're seeing the deer and you can tell he's hit, hard, and you can continue to get permission to keep going, and it's still bleeding good, then
it's hard to stop.
It's hard to stop. It's hard to stop. But
so a lot of deer are finished shortly after I get there. We find them alive and we finish them, and a lot of buck tags get filled that would have never got filled had the dog been there. So a lot of these guys would have went and shot another buck.
So now you got a buck that's dead laying out there that nobody got to claim, and then he goes and kills another deer. So now you got 2 bucks dead, one of them wasted with one hunter in a state that you can only kill one
buck. So we're saving. We're filling buck tags.
Yeah, it's a herd improvement.
So in the beginning, I didn't know when to. As long as I was seeing blood, we're gonna go. And I didn't know how to explain to the hunter that my dog is telling me the deer is going to be alive, or that your deer is going to show up in a few weeks back on trail camera.
Right.
I had to cover enough ground so that they knew there was nothing there. They was convinced, their deer is not lying. It's not recovered.
Well, I think the difference between then and now is half of the tracks that you get calls about that are deer that are still going to be alive, you don't even go track them.
Over half of them I can interview.
You in the interview, you can say, you've been too far. You've been 800 yards and,
no guts on the arrow, no corn in the blood.
The chances are
red blood, smooth, clean red blood.
Yep.
Yep. So
there's no more 6 miles and 6 hour tracks for us.
If it wouldn't have been friends, it wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think too many people would want to go on that walk that we went.
No way.
Through the brush.
Half of them didn't go on the walk. They just waited till we called them and they'd meet us.
Meet us here. Get us back across that creek.
Well, there's not a whole lot of scenarios where you could track that far anyway, because you're not going to know somebody like that knew everybody that they were going to let you go. Yeah.
Kept letting us go.
And today we would know that deer would be back on camera.
Well, and it would have lived. Yeah. I mean, it worked out in a scenario where you were able to push it far enough to catch up to it and wear it out and able to get in there and finish it off. But if you wouldn't have, then the deer would have been back. Yeah. Or somebody else might have killed it, but it wasn't dying from that initial shot.
It was a clean pass through.
Yeah.
It was going to live that day.
Yeah.
So with the experience you've developed over the years, you've come to know that it's not just distance, it's not just blood, it's not just this, it's the culmination of all that.
And what my dog's telling.
And the dogs, yes. It's everything that it's all those factors, but not any one of those factors.
Right.
It's not, we want to find the deer, but we want to give you peace of mind if it's a bad shot and you still want us to come look. And we do charge for it, but it's not just about the money, because, Walter and I both, Walter a lot more than me, have literally told people there's no point in us coming to look for it. Like,
we don't want you to pay good money for something I feel like I'm not going to do any better than you've already done.
Either A, we say, no, we're not going to find it. There ain't no point in us coming. Like, you've done it as much as we're going to do in this scenario with what you've told us. Or B, the deer's dead. You just didn't go far enough. Go another couple 100 yards. You're probably going to find it. That happens a lot. They call back and say, yep, there it was. You were right. And, we're not going to take your money that way either. So
if I feel like you can find it, I'll tell them, don't go grid searching, but go the next couple 100 yards a straight line the way the deer was going. Most of those are gut shot, liver shot deer, and they've already been 300-400 yards. Well, I know a gut shot, liver shot deer is normally dead within 600. Just over and over and over. 588, 596, 574, 560, over and over and over, 600 yards or less. So if they've been 300-400 yards, guts and liver on the air, a couple beds, I'll usually tell them, go the next couple hundred yards. You probably find it.
Well,
they normally do.
A lot of people call on those shots because everybody instantly thinks I shot at the guts. I made a terrible shot, and then if they don't find the deer within a couple hundred yards, they start getting nervous, and then they start calling a tracker. But if you know you shot it in the guts, and they say, yeah, there's cord in the blood, and there's gut matter on the arrow, and I went 200 yards and I didn't find it, I know I screwed up. That's when you say, you just didn't go far enough. As long as you've given enough time,
still have blood.
That deer's going to be there.
What percentage of the people are still pretty persistent? I understand that, but you come on out. I mean, do you get that?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of time.
A lot of time.
A lot of them say they understand, they know, they just would feel better if the dog walked through the area, and if the dog doesn't find it, then they're happy.
I mean, but Walter has people call him that know that they made a good shot, but they won't even go look for the deer. They just every year
have the dog.
Every year, you know what? I'll just pay the money. That way, if it wasn't an issue, we'll give it 10 hours and we'll go in with the dog, and we got the best chance that we're ever going to get to find the deer. The deer's not going to get any more dead no matter how long you wait. So you might as well take the dog.
Well, that's my curiosity, because a lot of the stuff we talked about, you pay tons of money for corn, you spend tons of time in the woods, tons of money on game cameras, you buy a Matthews and that you have to get a loan on your house for. What those percentage of people, and even for me, let's just get the dog. Let's get this over with.
It is the people that are the most serious about it.
Sure.
That call for that kind of scenario. All right. Yeah, especially people that shoot, 170, 180, 190 inch deer, and they're like, we're better off just.
Well, if there's any chance that you may call a dog out,
you might as well call the dog out.
Call the dog first. Don't do anything to decrease your chances of finding it with the dog.
You and 10 buddies going out there are not going to help the scenario if you do.
You want every best opportunity you can get. You want to give that dog every best opportunity. If I bring the dog out,
every advantage. If
we make it 300 yards in 3 minutes, there's your deer. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's awesome. That's your best outcome.
Well, yeah. You just, for me, looking at that scenario, like you've already spent $2,000 taking that shot. You've bought the best of everything else. Getting that dog to do that work is just a continuation of that same thing in my mind.
If you follow the steps properly, you increase your odds. And a lot of times it's not a fatal shot, but I can still take you in there and show you your deer.
Right.
Sure. We go in there, the deer gets up, runs off.
You can tell it's not hurt.
You're going to have to go hunting again. And that is a huge peace of mind. A lot of guys, once they draw blood on a deer, their season's done unless they get that deer. I mean, they just don't want to go out there and shoot another deer, and they don't want that deer to be wasted or wounded.
Yeah. And you take those guys that go to that outfitter that over there.
Yeah, Hups.
Hups. They're for a weekend. They don't have time to fail. So
right.
Success is paramount, and
you've already paid everything.
Money. Yeah. So So that was my question about it. What is your percentage of those guys that just want the service because that's just a continuation of what they already do, versus how many people are just made a bad shot and lost it?
I'd say there's only about 5 or 10% that may still come, even though most of the people we can do on the interview and if they have any sign or any kind of distance to their blood trail.
Gotcha.
Now, a lot of guys just can't get any blood. There's just no sign. The deer was 20, 30 yards. They shot it with a gun or shot it with a bow. They can't find the arrow. They just can't stick.
A lot of people, they get that buck fever. They get so excited. They don't have no idea where that deer went, which direction. They'll be tracking, looking positive in their mind that they shot that deer right there and it ran directly that way. And then you get there, the dog tells you something completely different.
Over and over.
And they're like, no, there's no way that the deer went this way.
The dog's pulling
that way.
I think the dog was going the wrong way, and just let him walk around. Even if I am going the wrong way, I'll walk the extra mile. But sometimes there's something over there that's got his attention that until I release his curiosity, he's going to continue to think about that. So sometimes I'll just take him over to smell a hole and then turn around and come back, get on the track.
But that's like the deer I shot this year out of the blind. I got a window of about 20 yards in either direction, and then I have no idea what happened to it after the track. So,
and then there was no blood for the first.
No blood. So while that deer was not bleeding, that's the only time I ever seen it. So when he got there with the dog, even though I knew I had put a pretty good shot on it, the deer was beneficial, or the dog was beneficial to finding the deer, because I just assumed it stayed on the trail, but it did not. It went uphill quite a ways.
And you would have probably found that deer without the dog, but you might have spent more time doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By myself, I would have had to walk down the hill so far and then back up the hill, and I'd have had to done that.
Eventually, you would have circled into it.
Oh, yeah.
And for the dog, a short track, big reward.
Oh, yeah.
All we're doing is making our dogs better. It's just increasing our odds of recovering our deer each time.
And, you know, on that particular one, that was the dog's first real trail job, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was good for him. And
it was a good confidence booster, and he's done really good since then. He's found the last 5 I put him on since then.
He did amazing that day. It was like,
he's been just like that since then.
Yeah. He actually broke loose from you and bolted out of there.
Yeah, I couldn't catch him. I jerked that leash, 30-foot leash, and still jerked it out of my hand.
So when we found him, he was already on top of the deer. He's like, look what I found, Dad.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, we are 2 hours into this, so I guess we'll call this one quits. But appreciate you guys coming over.
It's been awesome.
It's always good to share some stories and
lifelong friends that all 3 of you guys are in most of my memories and most of my stories.
Well, you think about it, that's for sure. The lots of deer hunting trips and stories with it. But
maybe we'll talk bass fishing someday. We got a lot of that too.
I think that's the best part of being a hunter is this part.
It's the camaraderie of it. Yeah.
Legends.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Drone fishing again. Mount Wood legends.
We could go trout fishing, and we could do a podcast where we're sitting there in the ice.
Do that.
Oh, you wouldn't want your film being embarrassed, would you?
Yeah. But all right, guys. Appreciate you watching. This will be up probably Thursday on our YouTube channel, the Shakedown Podcast, and obviously you can find it on Facebook at Jalen1489. So
more stories to come.
Yep. Have a good night.
See ya.